Welcome back to the Bourbon BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 253. It is January. What day is this?
11th.
The 11th. It's Whiskey Wednesday. And we got Shannon Chapman in the garage with us. Shannon has been on the show several times, and he's also been in the studio audience a lot of the weeks, most of the weeks, actually. So, welcome,
Fair
Shannon.
point.
Hello, gentlemen. I use that loosely, but hello.
You sound excited.
Ooh.
Sound excited. Nate Hale's with me as well, as always, and I'm Steve Crane. We have some sponsors. Want to kind of go through that here. One being Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. Check them out. We are smoking tonight something from Oliva. It's an interesting one. We'll get into this, but the Cuba Aliados, and this is the cabinet selection. This is the one made by Ernesto Perez Carrillo. And we'll get into that, but that is available as well as the, I guess, original blend, they call it, even though it's not the original blend. We'll get into that a little bit as well. Anyways, they're both available at Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio.
There's a lot of tomfoolery going on.
Something like that. So check out your local brick and mortar, or if you want to get a hold of Tinder Box at Easton and shop local-ish, you can do so. They do ship, and they can ship these to you as well. Try them all out. Also, Altadis USA, you'll see some of the brands behind us there. Monte Cristo, Romeo, y Julieta, H. Upman, and Aging Room. And a lot of the Altadis products are available at Tinderbox at Easton as well. You guys are familiar with a lot of those, I'm sure. But thank you for the continued support from Altadis USA. We have the second cigar of the night is the Monte Cristo Nicaragua series, which we had, I think, last week as well. Just a great medium-bodied cigar made by AJ Fernandez. BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver are available. Gold made by Plasencia, and the silver is made by Espinosa Cigars out of the La Zona factory. Both are all Nicaraguan, but different blends entirely. The gold is a great medium-bodied hint of spice, and the silver is going to be a very kind of medium full, pushing a lot of Ligero in there and a lot of pepper. So check those out as well. You guys, patreon.com/BourbonBS podcast. I appreciate the support there. We had, again, another month's support from all you guys, which we appreciate. Helps us do this. Just had to get a new camera for the show. So little stuff like that definitely gets helped out. Also, Venmo at BourbonBS.
It really brings out the gray in my beard. Thank you.
Yeah, it's got a little colder look to it, and that's just not the January air. It's just, this is what we've got here. So, this is the best that I can get from Logitech. But yeah, it works out.
I think the picture looks nice.
I think it does too. It's not as warm. It's not as warm. We look very pale. We look very Midwestern.
Well, I was about to say we're three white guys in Ohio.
In gray ass Ohio.
Anyways, Venmo at BourbonBS for the one-time donation. If you want to do that, we appreciate that. And then also just heard from buyjack.com. Apparently, we had sold some stuff in the last few months because he sent some funds our way, which I appreciate as well. So I know I kind of maybe ruined it for someone, but it's after the holiday now. But Pam over at the post office in Gahanna, Ohio, we appreciate her support. She got some for some Christmas presents because every time I come to the post office to ship, I have one of the shirts on, something different. And she's like, "You always have the funniest or greatest shirts." So she got one of the hoodies that I've got on. I didn't know Nate. I just realized we have the same hoodie on.
You forgot to change. That's because
he didn't have it on.
I didn't have it on
every week. So, anyways, we'll have to deal with that tonight. I'm not going out in a t-shirt. You still can't find it, huh?
Yeah, it's still not popping up. Ray commented, but
yeah, hopefully you can see it here, guys. Share it. This is showing up for some people, not for everyone. So share it on Facebook and YouTube. Join us live every week. Without further ado, we're already 4 minutes into it. What are we sipping on tonight?
Well, Shannon was nice enough to. I know if you were going to look at his
He's working on Facebook.
That's true. So Shannon was nice enough to bring us the Penelope Barrel Strength. So this is one of two cornerstones for Penelope. They're 4-grain. And then the 4-grain barrel strength, which is what we're drinking on tonight. They're a newer company. The CEO and founder found out back in 2018 that he and his wife were going to have a child, and it was going to be a girl, and they actually were going to name her Penelope. And he wanted to create a whiskey company for that occasion and named it after his daughter. So they are a younger company. All their stuff is being sourced from MGP.
Yep.
They don't shy away from that. It's on the bottle that this is distilled in Lawrenceburg,
Or should you,
Indiana.
really?
It's on their website. So it's MGP Juice, Speyside Cooperage is who's making all the barrels. And then they also disclose it's being bottled at Bardstown.
Okay.
So
it's kind of all over there a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
So they have an office.
Yes.
Penelope gets around, bro.
Yes, they. Whoa, hey, she's 4, easy.
Oh shit.
No, so like I said, this is a 4-grain. So their 4-grain mash bill is 74% corn, 16% wheat, 7% rye, 3% malted barley. For this, they are using 3 different mash bills, small batch blended together. It's not filtered, and whatever the overall proof in that mixing, that's what you get in this bottle. So everything on it is going to be at least, or everything in it is going to be at least 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And they even disclose on their website, like they do a level 4 char on the staves and a level 2 char on the barrel heads.
Okay.
So they actually give quite a bit of information.
So it is a blend. You said 3 different mash bills, right?
Yes.
4 years.
Each mash bill is 4 grains.
Okay. And then you're sitting at 113.9.
Yeah, this one's 113.9. They're usually going to be around 113, 115 in that ballpark. And in the state of Ohio, this is coming in at $59.99. I believe currently the regular 4-grain is coming in at $34.99.
What was the price on this? I'm sorry.
$59.99.
Nice.
But they do have the state of Ohio, for those that live local, they do have several different Penelope products throughout Ohio. May not all be available still because a couple of them are single barrels, probably done for the state of Ohio. But they do have an artisan series, one called Valencia, and then they have the 4-grain and the barrel strength.
Nice.
It's got a nice spice to it.
Yeah, that first little drink right off the rip was wasn't over the top, but it was like welcome to the party kind of. We're here.
Yeah, I mean it definitely speaks some barrel strength language there.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of guys coming into the barber shop talking about this, and
the barrel strength or just Penelope in general?
The barrel strength. And I remember seeing it I saw it at the store, but I never picked it up. And another customer actually brought one into me, and I was like, all right, cool. So then I went and bought one, and this one I dropped one off here so we could actually all try together. I haven't cracked the other one yet, so I was waiting to do it on
this. This is the first time you're having it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nate, what do you think?
Have you had any of their stuff before?
I never even heard of them. We were at the Kroger's up in Sunbury and in their little liquor store, and they had not a whole bunch of it sitting there, but they had this and they had the white label sitting there.
That's the regular 4-grain.
So I'd never heard of it, and I was like, yeah, I'll wait till I get a little more info on it. And then literally the next day, like, have you had this? Have you had that? I'm like, geez, all right, I got to go back and get this thing now.
But all my guys, a bit, huh?
Yeah, all my guys are raving about it at the shop. They really love it, and their little circle of bourbon guys, they really love it. So let's see if we love it.
A few months ago, I was up the street at Steve's Kroger, and I picked up the white label, which is the regular 4-grain. And to be honest, like the first pour or so of it, I was like, I'm not that big of a fan. But then as I actually started getting into the bottle, not in one night, just calm down.
There
people.
I was finishing the bottle.
A whole bunch of drunk dials on that one.
Weird post, dude. Weird post.
No. But no, like as the weeks went on and I'd go back and have another pour out of that bottle, like it was better than what it was initially. So it was actually a really good bottle. The 4-grain to me had like a little bit of butterscotch sweetness to it.
The regular 4-grain?
The regular 4-grain.
Okay.
Little butterscotch, a lot sweeter because it is going to be proofed down. This one, still get a little bit of that sweetness, but on the back end, I definitely get some of that char from that level 4 char that they're using. I get that char note, and the nose is actually sweeter, I think, than the palate. Like on the palate, it's kind of caramel, and like on the back of the palate, or I'm sorry, the nose. On the back of the nose, I kind of get a little bit of mint in there too.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there, actually. Now you say that.
This is why there's 3 of us. That way we can each get something different or inspire.
When you said the mash bill, that was for the 4-grain, not for this one, correct? Because this is 3 different mash bills.
They're using 3 different.
Sure.
They're using 3 different 4-grain mash bills.
Okay.
The standard 4-grain is that mash bill I read off. Why on their website they list that as the mash bill if they're using 3? I don't know, but it,
So is that a longer process to still and all that?
No,
just kind of all just
no,
mix it up
no. So it's still going to distill at the same amount of time as if you were using a 3-grain mash bill. Most places, if they're doing a 3-grain, it'll either be corn, rye, and barley or corn, wheat, and barley. Okay. They're including both the rye and the wheat together in that mix. So like Weller, for example, Weller's a wheated bourbon.
Yeah.
They're not using the rye grain in their product, which is why also Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark is a wheated bourbon. That's why sometimes those wheated whiskeys will actually taste a little bit sweeter because they're not getting that spice from that rye grain.
I'm getting some of that in this.
So the purpose with the 4 is kind of just hitting all the notes all around the.
Yeah, so if you're having that 74% corn, there's definitely going to be some sweetness there, but kind of the wheat and rye are almost offsetting each other a little bit. Like that wheat's going to add a different type of flavor profile to it. That might be more kind of like a syrupy type of sweetness to it than like the caramel or cherry or vanilla that you might get from just a higher corn. But then that rye kind of adds that little bit of spice that sometimes like as spice or mint is something that you get on a lot of ryes, either on the nose or on the palate.
Yeah, I got a little spice right off that first little nip, and it was good.
I'm liking it. I'm getting some spice for sure.
Yeah.
So what was the rye percentage on that original?
7%. Do we have the water dropper down here? Is it up on the? Because they don't. Because like I've done it with some of the single barrels with you, Steve, or some of the other guys at the Tinder Box, where the companies that do a single barrel, they're a lot of times they're just barreling it at whatever or the barrel strength. They're just bottling it straight out of the barrel. They're not diluting it down. So sometimes you miss out of adding a little bit of water to see if you hit that sweet spot where the flavors really open up. Because we've done that with some other barrel strengths before, is like we've drank them neat, then add a little bit of water and that flavor kind of change.
Yeah, I've noticed if I just take a nice drink of it, it's got a little bit of sweetness to it. But if I take a drink and hold it just a couple seconds longer, that cinnamon, that spice comes through, and the notes change. This is a very interesting drink.
To Kristen's question, no, not mint like Listerine. No, I mean mint like if I went out into my garden and chewed a mint leaf right off one of the plants. But that's on the nose, and it's for me that was kind of on the back of the nose. The front of the nose was more of the sweetness, but there was a little bit of that mint on the back end as well. Yeah, and it's nice to see that Bobby Hirschman is in Virginia and he's drinking bourbons. Normally, Bobby
a lot of bourbons. I saw.
Yeah, a lot. Normally, Bobby Hirschman is a Crown Royal, so he's normally a Canadian whiskey kind of guy. And
2023, baby.
New year,
Bobby.
I don't remember who I am.
The bottle.
You want the bottle there?
Yeah. I had a smaller pour than you guys did.
Oh, he still has some.
I still have some, but it was a much
I
smaller.
was trying to
pour.
get that liquid heat inside me, brother.
Yeah, it's still cold here in Columbus. So I like this a bit here. It's a good call in the water. So I put a dropper down there if you want to try it and then pass it down. Because a lot of times, depending on who you are, some people like to really just go straight in and they don't add anything to it. That's just how they drink it neat all the time. And then there's some people that I was watching. Saw videos like was Elmer T. Lee or whatever was saying. I don't know if you saw one of those videos where he says, yeah, people can drink it, however they want, the barrel strength, but even he didn't even drink it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, like I feel like a lot of people that are the actual distillers say a lot of that stuff, especially the old traditional guys.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorites was it was after hours at Tinder Box leading up to the holiday. It was you, me, Josh, and Brian. And I brought in a single barrel proof release from someone here in the Columbus area.
Sit down.
And
it's not sterile.
You, me, and Brian had all had that bottle before. Or actually, all four of us had that bottle before. And I brought it in again. And it was 119 proof. And before anybody drank it, I actually put like half a bottle cap of water in mine, in yours, and in Brian's.
Yeah.
And then when I was gonna do it to Josh's, and Josh was like, no, I don't do it with my whiskey. I'm like, all right, I'm just saying, like it really changes it because you've already had this neat. I'm just saying it changes. And you and Brian all of a sudden start taking sips of it with a few drops of water, and Brian was going nuts about how it changed the flavor and actually made the flavor more intense. And so Josh just sat there and was like, well, shit. All right. So Josh adds a little bit of water to his just because he kind of felt peer pressured into it. Mm-hmm. And he goes, that's the first time I've ever done that. And it tasted so different and had so much more flavor.
So this, what did you try it with a couple drops?
Yeah, yep.
What do you think, Shannon?
I feel like the more cinnamon kind of popped out a little bit. Is that what you're getting?
So first thing I noticed was that it muted a little bit that first little hit on my palate. Now, granted that I'm a few sips in here, but it definitely kind of balanced it out a little bit. It wasn't as much of a shock with that kind of mint. Yeah, I get a little more cinnamon, but I'm getting a lot more on like the mid to the finish now, where before like at the very beginning of the sip, it's kind of like I did 2 drops of water. And again, I mean, I've got not a ton in my glass if you guys can see it, but I mean, just that little bit of water definitely muted that first kind of punch, but then it really let me bring out some flavor. So I'm interested to have a couple more sips of this.
Yeah, I took that first drink. I was like, wait, it couldn't have changed it that quick, and shit, it did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you say cinnamon.
I definitely get more spice. Like it's more, it tingles the tongue more.
Huh.
All right, I'm not crazy then. Good.
You weren't going to say it because you thought you were going to sound crazy. So you let me say it to sound crazy. And then you're like,
I backed you up.
Yeah, you did. You did.
It does.
Take a chance, Shannon.
It's good. I am liking this more. Not because we're like 4 glasses in. That's a different statement. But, 4 or 5 sips in, it's not quite that big.
No. But yeah, and it's weird. Sometimes we've had that before where we've drank something that was a higher proof and added a little bit of water to it, and it brought out more spice, not more sweetness. A lot of people sometimes think, add water will take out the heat and it brings out, more of the sweet notes or food flavors. But you're right. This actually adds a little bit more of that cinnamon to the palate, which is not in their flavor descriptors whatsoever.
Maybe we should write into them like, yeah, you messed up a little bit.
Well, remember, everyone keep in mind here, when we do these reviews on here in part 1 of the podcast, we are also smoking. So we took a sip of this. I believe all of us had not lit up our cigars yet. So you have to keep that in mind. So again, I think we give some honest feedback, but it definitely can be impacted by whatever we're smoking that night, which is the Ernesto Perez Carrillo version of the Cuba Aliados.
Yeah, when I took the first initial drink, got that nice little hit right off the rip. and I lit the cigar, took a couple puffs, and I went back to the bourbon. It actually muted a lot of that stuff out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But now the flavors of both the cigar and the bourbon are starting to blend together very nicely.
It is starting to go well together.
Yeah.
So Penelope, I'm interested to try some other products from them after this at this point. So, as we get into a little bit more, I'm going to go back. When I pour the second one, I'm not going to throw some water in it right away. I'm definitely going to, have a couple sips and then throw the water in there again just to see if it is just, as it goes. What are we talking about here? Jim Johnson says ting. Yeah, that's right.
Bobby was calling us dorks for using eyedroppers, and I was like, they were gifts from Kristen. He's like, sure, bring her in.
Bobby's been drinking. He's been drinking bourbon. We're gonna get a different Bobby Hirschman tonight. I feel like from the hotel bar where he's at, and I'm here for it, Bobby. Absolutely here for it. Don't take that the wrong way. As you said, you're a sensitive guy. I just want you to know that we're here for it. All the love. But as we're smoking this, I kind of want to just give a little bit of information. So I kind of know a bit of the story on this one, but the Cuba Aliados name is before my time in the industry. I don't know if you were around. I don't think you were around at that time when this was originally out, the brand name. Are you familiar with it?
When did it come out?
So I don't know the exact dates, but this was something that Cuba Aliados, basically Oliva has now purchased the rights to the name. And this was something coming out of Puros Indio, and Rolly Trademarks. So there were 3 brands made popular by the late Rolando Reyes Sr.
That's where I know the name.
And I had these, I think, from the Puros Indios. I've had those because Christian Aroa was distributing those at some point.
Okay.
Or maybe it was Camacho, and I wish I had Nook on here, but that's a whole other story.
Well, I remember Puros Indios from before I was working in the retail, and I used to order cigars online.
Okay.
There was one of the online places that carried Puros Indios, and so I recognized that name and the name of the gentleman you said passed away.
So this one, we have two Cuba Aliados that you can find out on the market now. They're both released not too long ago. I believe it was just this last summer here, but we got them in at the Tinder Box at Easton not too long ago. And this is, you got this one again being made by Ernesto Perez Carrillo. This is a little higher price point. This is the cabinet selection. This is a certain blend. And then you have one made by JRE, which is Christian's father and brother. That's Julio Iroa. They're making an all Honduran blend called the original blend, even though it's not the original blend. And it's, again, being made by JRE Cigars, being made by EPC, distributed by Oliva Cigars, who purchased the name rights to Cuba Aliados. You guys following along at home? We can get a whiteboard out here if we need it.
I need it.
We do have a whiteboard.
Yeah, where the hell's it at?
It's over there with the
drink. Like every whiteboard should be.
We could mount one or a chalkboard right here in between these two seats.
We don't need it.
Don't let my wife see that whiteboard. She'd have us all whipped into shape in here.
Is that right?
Yeah.
On the whiteboard is the podcast drinking game. So the decision. So this is from halfwheel.com. The decision to release 2 blends are being done as a nod to Reyes' travels after leaving Cuba in 1970 and journey that led him to Honduras in 1990. This brand in particular, this has got a nice, I think, kind of darker, but it's an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper. It's got a Nicaraguan binder and then fillers from Dominican and Nicaragua. So very different from an all Honduran blend, obviously. And they look entirely different. The boxes, the bands, the cigars themselves. Obviously, tobacco is very different from these. But this is, like I said, they're limited. This one's limited in particular. So this is limited to a total of 15,000 boxes. And 10,000 of them are for the U.S., okay? And these are boxes of 20.
All right.
So limited, not
200,000 cigars.
Yeah, limited, not heavily limited. It's just something, if you fall in love with it, make sure you grab a box, throw it in the humidor. Definitely don't want to miss out on this. Got Boyd Collins joining in here. That's great.
Yeah, he said yummy when he saw Penelope, so I asked him what's his take on it. So we'll see what he's got.
Yeah.
I'm digging this cigar, man, a lot. I noticed I was smoking it pretty fast. I had to keep putting it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm loving this. It's smooth. It's just got great flavor.
What kind of surprised me was like after the initial light up of the cigar, have a few puffs, and then while we were talking about the whiskey, I was focusing on that. I'd let the cigar rest, and it'd been a few minutes, and then I came back to it, and it was still burning. Now I did hit it with the lighter just to touch up the outside to make sure the outside wrapper stays burning. I didn't want it to tunnel in, but it was still going.
What do you guys think of the blend? What are you getting out of it? Anything?
So it's got a little bit of that, like it's going to sound weird, like a dark leather.
Dark leather, not a light leather.
I know it's gonna.
Talking about like Fonzie leather. Hey,
what is the difference between light and dark leather when it comes to flavor?
I knew you were gonna.
You set it up.
I know.
So expand on the darker leather.
Like it's got that leather flavor, but it's almost like a little heavier, and like there's almost like a little bit of bite on the back of it as well.
Okay.
I don't know much about the blends, but if you had somebody come in that's not a big cigar smoker every once in a while, I think you could hand this to them. It wouldn't beat their socks off, but it give them a nice flavor profile, and I don't know. I think they would actually really enjoy this as even a first time cigar. I think you could get away. Doesn't seem overpowering or heavy.
I put it like a medium plus.
Yeah.
I would say medium plus as well in strength. I see what you're saying, Shannon. It could be a little much, in my opinion, for some like first time smokers, because there is not just with this whiskey. I find this has a it's not bitey. It's got a lingering. What is it? It's not like it's a little. It's spice, but it's a different spice. I get a little like cedar notes, like kind of mid palate there.
Okay.
And then it turns. Not saying that they wouldn't enjoy it. I just think that some people, again, you're dealing with,
like baking spice, or
could be, but I'm trying to think of which one.
I don't know. It's only with that cedar note that you met. Yeah, it's definitely woody right there, and I don't know. It kind of lends itself to almost like a toasty note on that finish, on that back end.
It does.
Like either like a toasted nut or something, like not sweet, almost like you've kind of toasted out the sweetness of it. Like you've burned off those sugars and whatever. You just kind of get that
kind of like a nutmeg, kind of not sweet, but not just got.
It's not not sweet, but not real sharp or bitter.
Right.
It's not. It's. And this is possibly will also maybe turn people off from it, but Boyd counts as white pepper. Boyd, I don't know if you know what we're smoking. I'll click it over that. I'm sorry, I didn't put that on the screen. He might be right. He says burnt walnut. I don't know if he's just throwing out notes. But
when I said toasted nut, he's like burnt walnut.
It's not too far off there. But I think it's almost a little like if you're eating something, the finish on this one to me isn't it's not a bad flavor, but it's just almost overdone. Like it's something you're eating is like over seasoned. Like you put too much salt and pepper on there, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, like kind of lingering on there too much. And it does dry it out a little bit for me. I don't know about you guys. But you kind of see where I'm,
I do.
You kind of put a little bit too much seasoning on something, and like at the end of it, you're like, no, it's good. It's good. It's just like maybe a little less.
Not quite to the extent of blackened.
Need more gravy.
Well, and the thing I'll say about this, there's when I first smoked it, and I see EPC's name on it. Like I've smoked a lot of cigars from EPC.
Yeah.
And my biggest issue I have is I feel like I'm always waiting for the flavor to hit.
Do you see that with this?
This is probably one of the more flavorful blends I've had done by EPC. Like for me, the most flavorful thing he makes is the La Historia. I like that over the Encore and the Pledge, which both got number ones, because it different cigars. I get that, but like that's got a really rich, heavy flavor to it. And I think a lot of the other stuff that I smoke coming out of his factory, even stuff that he does for other companies, I find myself waiting for the flavor. There's flavor there, but it always seems to come in light.
On your palate.
On my palate.
Yeah.
And so initially when I was going to smoke this, when Tinder Box Easton first got them in, I was kind of expecting that same thing. I was like, I'm going to smoke this and keep asking myself, where's the flavor? I was surprised by just how much flavor this cigar does actually have.
I see what you're saying. So Ernesto Perez Carrillo, all the respect for him in the industry. I mean, he's kind of a living legend at this point. He's done some great things in the industry. Would never. I would just give him compliments.
Yeah.
I met him very, very briefly. Didn't say much back and forth. It was at Cigar Fest. And I know that Jake Sanders, who was on the podcast recently, he's down there he was in their factory today. So I'm interested to see what he has to say about meeting him and doing all the things that he got to see down there. And you'll see some of the stuff on social media. He may even post some of the stuff on the Bourbon and BS community page. I don't know if he and I have, and it means nothing because he, again, does amazing things in the industry, but I don't know if he and I have the same palate.
Agreed.
So I would say what you're saying in kind of a different way for me. The last story, I agree. It kind of hits more what I enjoy. The Encore I like. This is, again, I almost feel like it's like that. I go back to what I just said and try not to be too redundant here, but it's almost like overspiced. The flavor on this one. It is a lot more than some of the other. And again, I haven't smoked one in a while. The Capa del Sol that he did. This kind of reminds me of what I remember of that one. Again, very woody, cedary. It's not like a spicy cigar like some, but it does just kind of has that spicy sensation of, again, maybe being like an over salted type of a food, right? So it's like if you go into Chipotle and they use way too much salt on their stuff and you take a bite and it's like, it's not spicy, but it's like almost like burning your tongue.
It's like licking a salt block.
Because it's too much salt. That's kind of what I'm getting. And again, I'm not trying to harp on it or say this is a bad cigar. That's just my negative of this one is that it's like when I'm not smoking or drinking, I'm just kind of now talking, kind of have that. I'm not getting cotton mouth, but it's almost like right in the back of my throat. I'm just kind of like, man, like I need more water.
It's great.
How many other cigars have you had that kind of did that to you or tasted like this?
I've had it before. I mean, this is not like unique in that. So again, it might just be my palate. And again, I don't know exactly which tobaccos in this blend that are doing it for me like that. But I've had it before. I've had it where I've had the whole thing where it's just kind of like I can't either have to keep drinking water during the cigar or I have to like drink or keep going back to the cigar to kind of get that first 2/3 of the flavor. You know what I mean?
I got a little different experience. I get the dryness.
You get a little bit.
I get a little bit of that, but the spice or the over peppered or salt, whatever, I'm not getting. I just get a nice smooth flavor that just hit me different. I guess I don't know.
Could have been some I ate today. I don't know.
I'm really enjoying this. This is definitely I go back to this in a heartbeat.
It's good. So what I did notice also with this, and I don't know if it's because of I'll just say this. This is the Toro size. This one's coming in with an MSRP mid $14.
All right.
So basically, I think the Robusto they have a 6x60 as well as Churchill this size, and I don't know if there's a fifth or not. We can always look it up here, but
so a little bit higher than average.
It is, and again, coming from the Oliva portfolio, just straight up, you're in the not quite the Melanio prices from them.
No,
You're right in the ballpark, but not quite.
Well,
Like 6x60, for example, is like, $16, $17. My point is that coming from like their Oliva V and some of the other core lines, this is definitely a little bit higher than that. It is limited edition. You got Ernesto Perez Carrillo. It's coming in a little bit higher than even like some of the like the Encores and stuff that he's been so heavily applauded for.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's a fun project. You
said the Robusto was around 13 to 14.
I believe so. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because when you said Melanio, the Robusto on that is what, $12.95?
The Robusto, the Robusto MSRP is $14. This is $14.50. Torpedo's $14.75. Churchill is $15, and then the Gordo is $15.50.
So on the lower end, a little bit higher than the same
tight
size
price range.
Yeah,
you're 14 to less than 16. So $14 at the bottom, and then just quarters up to basically $15.50.
And that Melanio is like 12 to 18.
Correct.
So this is a little bit higher than the smallest Melanio, but the bigger size is lower than the same size Melanio. So tighter window.
I don't know if I may have missed it, but did you say where this is like the tobacco's coming from?
He did.
Yeah. So the Sumatra wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, and then Dominican and Nicaraguan filler.
Ecuadorian Sumatra?
It is. Yeah, the retrohale, it does have a little bit of that slight pepper to it.
It does. It does have some pepper, but it's not enough to like make you want to sneeze, especially if you're someone who retrohales as often as we do.
I'm fighting back as soon as you say that.
It's because I got it in your mind.
Do it.
So when Boyd Collins said white pepper, I don't know if he was talking about the cigar or the bottle, but I think it's a little bit heavier of a pepper than that, but not like full on black peppercorn.
No.
So maybe a little bit more raw, like a green peppercorn.
Green.
There's actually some pepper grinders that are like 4 color.
I didn't know green was one of them. Oh, there's pink.
I know that's salt too.
Mm-hmm.
Pink salt.
Mm-hmm. He's talking about the cigar, he says.
Okay, cool.
And Bob Hirschman's out there being sensitive again there. Sorry, bro, Tim. Have to be quiet. Don't want to be a different Bobby. Ha, 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 ha. All right. Keep posting, though. I want to see those. That was great to see on the Bourbon and BS community page.
Oh, yeah.
Doing that. He did it on his own personal one as well, but what he sampled a lot. Not going to try to come across that way, but I mean, he did try a lot of different bourbons, which was cool to see because, like your point, it's fun to try different stuff, just like we do on the show. So, How do you guys think this pairs up? I mean, we can go into the kind of the round out part one, but let's just do that. I think we should do that, unless you guys have more on the cigar or the bottle.
Nope. I think we touched on everything we need to.
It's kind of a mellow night on the Bourbon BS podcast so far, don't you think? Yeah.
We're just warming up.
It's all right. I'm okay with it. Hopefully you guys, if you're listening the first time, definitely check out part 2 tonight, and then previous episodes. It's available left on Facebook and also on YouTube, the videos. And then also it's on most, if not all, of the podcast apps, like, the Apple one. You got the Spotify, the iHeartRadio, Luminary, a bunch of other ones. So check them out, share them, subscribe, all that stuff. So this is the part of part 1. As we kind of round out part 1, where we're talking about the cigar, we're talking about the whiskey. We do ratings out of 10. Best is 10. And then you do a rating on the whiskey, you do a rating on the cigar, and a rating on the pairing for whatever your reasons are. Shannon, go ahead as the guest here.
All right, let's start with the cigar.
Correct.
So like I said earlier, I'm really digging this cigar, man. It's hitting all the right notes for me. I love this podcast because everybody has a different palate, and it just kind of rings out. And from what you guys are talking about, I'm not getting that little spice or whatever on the backside of it. But I don't know, man. The flavor is great. The draw is great. The construction's been really amazing. I've not relit this thing one time. It's been sitting, But I'm gonna give this bad boy a 9.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
how about the Penelope barrel strength? Which I'll take a little bit more of that while you talk about it, if you don't mind. Cheers.
Ting.
Ting.
Was not the lighter.
So, this is all of our first time sampling this. And, you never know. People talk about it, and you see it on the shelf. It could be another gimmick drink. But, man, I am enjoying it. It's from the very first sip to pairing it with the cigar. I'm going home and crack the other one I have.
There you go. There you go.
Has it lived up to the hype that the guys came in the shop talking?
The way the guys talked about it, they didn't oversell it, but they definitely talked really good about it, and it lived up to it. So I'm going 9s across with that. And the pairing, I'm going to go with another 9. I think they pair well with the spice and the little notes in the cigar. For me, they just kind of balance out. One's not overpowering the other, for me at least. This is a good sipper, a good smoke, a good night all the way around. 9s across the board, baby.
Been a little while since you've been on this side of the table too, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Nate, how about you? The ratings here.
So, for the whiskey, I'm going to give the whiskey an 8. Definitely enjoy it. It's. Am I the only person here who's had other Penelope products?
Yes.
Okay. So I have had the 4 grain, and I think I actually might prefer the regular 4 grain because it has a little bit more of like a butterscotch type sweetness to it. This one has more your food notes and spice to it, and which probably would expect coming in at a barrel strength. Still using a 4 grain mash bill. Like I said earlier, I get a lot of that char note on the finish of this one. I didn't get that on the original 4 grain. Obviously, the original 4 grain was a lot lighter. I think that one was coming in the 80s.
Okay.
So obviously that's going to lend itself to having a different flavor profile. Still enjoyable for being a barrel strength at 113.9. I think it punches a little bit below that proof. I don't think it drinks quite that hot. I don't think it tastes like it's 114.
I agree with that. It doesn't drink hot.
Yeah, because I can think of another product right now off the top of my head that is 114 proof that has a lot more spice, a lot more cinnamon than this, but it's also utilizing different mash bill. But again, I've had stuff that's a little bit lighter than this that had more spice on it. So, it all depends, but it's still enjoyable. I definitely agree. This is more of a sipper. I think it would be something that you could actually play around with in a cocktail as well.
Oh, for sure.
All those different mash bills and the 4 different grains in there. You could definitely play around with this as a cocktail. For the cigar, I'm not as big a fan of Shannon of this cigar. I have smoked this multiple times at the Tinder Box. Between this and the original that they have, I definitely prefer this over the original. It's a good smoke. It doesn't necessarily wow me, but it's still good and it's definitely worth trying. I give the cigar a 7.5. So both of them separate. I actually enjoy the whiskey a little bit more than I enjoy the cigar. Still an enjoyable cigar. It's definitely something that you should try because it is different. With the pairing, I'm actually going to bump up the pairing. I'm going to give the pairing an 8.25.
Okay.
Because that dryness that Steve talked about with the cigar, when I smoke the cigar and it kind of has that effect of drying out my palate a little bit, and then I go to this whiskey, that initial flavor up front is sweeter for the whiskey than what it was by itself before smoking the cigar. When I first had a couple sips of the whiskey before lighting the cigar, I didn't really get a whole lot of sweetness. Definitely not as much as what they list on their website of the flavor profiles. But smoking this cigar and it having that dry effect highlights what sweetness there is in this whiskey. So I think they're a better pairing than they are separate.
Got it. For me, the Penelope barrel strength, this is their 4 grain. Again, 3 different mash bills have gone into this blend. and it's all aged at least 4 years. Coming out of MGP, you said, Nate.
Yes.
This, if you're just tuning in, make sure you go back to the beginning of this part 1. This is better with a couple drops for me. A couple drops of water.
Okay.
I poured again, right? So this is my second glass here, and took a couple sips without the water because we had done that kind of mid pour this last time. It definitely it had a stronger hit on my palate again.
Okay.
It did. It was it has, I do get a little more of the sweetness from it, but it had almost like a more of a punch to it. And then I just put a couple drops in there, and this is one, and I don't think this goes with all whiskeys, but with this one, especially with barrel strengths or anything else, but with this one, I enjoy how it kind of takes it down just a notch as far as that punch on my palate. I can get more of the flavors. I can get more subtle sweetness and some of the things we talked about in the beginning. I'm going to give the bottle, I'll give it an 8 just because I think it's more of I'll give it 8.5 after I've added a couple of drops. Say that. So for your guys' feedback there, you get the bottle. If you like it, it's worth on this one to me adding a couple of drops of water on your pour just to see if you have a better drinking experience of it. I don't know what that would necessarily prove it down to. I don't think too much, but it's just enough of a softening hit to that on my palate where I'm enjoying sipping on it. Where the other, if I'm sipping on a glass or two of it without the water, it might start kind of building up a little bit on me as far as on my palate. The cigar, I'm more with Nate on the cigar. I like Shannon. I like that people have different opinions of this. I had a customer who smokes a lot of cigars, came in a couple weeks ago, and for whatever reason, he's like, I'm in the mood for something with a Sumatra wrapper. And we had just gotten this in probably within a month or so. And I asked him if he had this, and he said no. And I explained it to him. He loved it. Afterwards, he's just
Nice.
like, dude, that was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. And I had smoked it prior to that. Kind of where I'm at now with it. You know what I mean? I think I'm going to give it kind of, you said a 9, Shannon. You said a 7.5. I'll kind of split it a little bit, push an 8. This is for me, I agree with what Shannon said. He touched on it more than any of us at the table here. The construction of the cigar is wonderful.
Yeah.
The overall smoking experience is fantastic. For me, I just don't know if it's hitting my palate the way I wouldn't go back to it for the $15 price point, call it. So for $15, that it's not my favorite. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would smoke it again. I mean, I'm the one that picked it for the podcast. You know what I mean? I'm not like, I don't like the cigar. Let's smoke it, on my Wednesday night in front of everyone.
Shitty cigar, smoke it up.
Yeah, way to go, Ernesto. This thing sucks. No, it's not that. This is, it's different. And it's interesting because I do like to, because I smoked, we just did the Gatekeeper last week.
Yeah.
I hadn't had it in quite some time. We learned that it was made by Placencius. Check that out, last week's episode. I went back and smoked it yesterday, actually. And Josh in the store was like, hey, didn't you guys do that last week? I said, yeah, actually, I want to smoke it without the whiskey to see what I think. I like that more going back as like a review of last week's. I like the Gatekeeper more with the whiskey last week than I did on its own. So this one, I think it stands alone. It's a good cigar. Not necessarily my profile blend of what I would give a 9 or a 10. So I got respect for it, but again, it's just not kind of my go-to. The pairing's interesting to me. I think you guys both gave it, you ticked it up a little bit, Nate, right?
I gave the pairing higher than what I gave the cigar or whiskey by itself. Shannon was straight 9s across the board.
And what did I say? I said...
You said 8 on the whiskey by itself, 8.5 with water.
Yeah.
And then 8 on the cigar. So far you're 8 and 8.
8 and 8, pushing 8.5 on the bottle. I think I'm going to stick a little bit more with the bottle rating. I'll say kind of the same thing I said about the bottle. I think the pairing it's solid. I mean, again, all things considered what I said, they go pretty well together. I do think it's a better pairing after a couple drops of water in the pour. I think this is something that, again, they both have a lot of flavor. Now, whether you really like the flavor, that's always subject to your opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, for me, again, I think when I drank it without the water, they paired okay. I think with some water, it pairs better because now I'm getting just more flavor from the whiskey that is a little bit more palatable, in my opinion. And for those that don't know me, I do like a lot of barrel strength stuff on its own. I mean, we're talking anything from, in the one teens to, 142. Yeah, right. So there you go. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think the bottle is kind of, or the pour is kind of my tipping point of how much I like it on its own, the whiskey, and even it influences the pairing quite a bit for me.
Yeah, I would definitely keep the bottle on my shelf at all times. It's a good sipper. It's a good nightcap, I think.
Yeah.
Bourbon, and then the cigar. I'd probably be out of my normal stuff I smoke. It'd be like a once a month kind of grab for me at that price point,
Yeah.
But I really enjoy the cigar.
I find myself going because I've done this recently at the Tinder Box. This is a cigar I find myself like I smoked it when the shop first got it in. And then I didn't smoke it for a while, but it's something I kind of go back to every now and then. Like, yeah, that once a month, once every few weeks, like it's on the shelf. There's tons of cigars to smoke at the Tinder Box. You got like 600 different offerings, but it is something that every now and then I look at it on the shelf. I'm like, I kind of want to try that again.
Yeah.
Like I know it's not, that 9 or 10 range, but it's still different than a lot of things on the shelf. And I kind of want to smoke it again. And that could be because something the owner of the Tinder Box said when we first got it in, but
I've smoked, I think 4 of them, including this one. Yeah, I'd smoke it again. Like I said, I don't know if I would gravitate back towards it as a regular rotation. So that's kind of, again, obviously, different. We all complimentary of the blend. It's just, I think, as Shannon said, 3 different people, 3 different palates. So take it for what it's worth. It's definitely, I would say this is definitely a cigar worth smoking, worth spending your $14, $15 on a Toro, because it is a well-constructed cigar. It is up to you guys if you want to experience it and see how it hits your palate. So that's, I think, anytime, any week that we're doing this. Same thing goes for the bottle. One more time, what's the MSRP in Ohio for the Penelope barrel strength?
The Penelope barrel strength is coming in at $59.99.
Okay. So a little higher than what we call the average, but nothing incredible price-wise.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, guys, stay tuned for part 2. We're going to be continuing on, taking it a little bit further, I think. You guys don't even know what we're talking about, do you?
Nope.
Perfect. Perfect.
You did not share that information.
All I got was a text that show up.
And you did that.
Show up. We're drinking your bottle.
Proud of you. But yeah, we're going to do part 2 here. That's where we go beyond the BS. But in the meantime, I do want to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton, where you can find the Cuba Aliados in both the EPC blend, which is the cabinet selection, and also the original blend by JRE Cigars, which is also available at Tinder Box at Easton. Check them out. If you guys, again, have a local shop, I hope you guys definitely support them, your local brick and mortar. If not, shop localish and get a hold of Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, and they can help you out wherever you might be. Also, Altadis USA, we're going to be smoking. We're going to smoke these for a little while. I mean, again, these are slow burners.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, we're about halfway through the cigar and almost an hour into the show.
Right. And we got the Monte Cristo Nicaragua series, which is made by AJ Fernandez. We've talked about that on the show before. That's the second cigar, thanks to Josh Bentley and the lovely people at Altadis USA. Also, the BS Cigar Company. The gold and silver are available. The gold is made by Plasencia and the silver by Espinosa. So check them out as well. And then I want to thank you guys again, the patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast for you guys, and also the Venmo guys and girls that have contributed through Venmo at Bourbon and BS for the one-time contributions. And if you like if you can see them clearly, actually you can on this camera, it's nice. The Bourbon and BS barrelhead black camo hoodie that Nate and I both have on. Thank you, Vanna. And then also I've got the blue podcast shirt on. Nate's probably got something on there. But pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. I wore this to the gym. Haven't changed.
I got the gray one.
You got the gray and black, different colors. And then there's some other good stuff on there as well you've seen on the show. But check that out. Buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. You guys enjoy your week. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. If you're just hanging out tonight, please stay tuned for part 2 We're going to have Shannon sticking along with us.
Yeah, buddy.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Stay warm.
I think it's funny when you mentioned the Milano when you were talking about the cigar, and we were mainly talking about price point and stuff like that. Milano also has an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper.
Does.
From what I heard, and this is kind of what intrigued me to smoke it the first few times, is not the exact, but this is a similar blend to the Milano.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's what I had been told. Not leaf for leaf, or priming for priming, but
who told you?
Brian.
Fair.
Which sometimes Brian does say stuff just to sell it, but
especially to his employees.
Yeah, especially
Actually,
that's what a true business owner does, right? You need to sell shit.
When I drove out to Philly or Hockessin area outside of Philly, on my drive out, I was smoking a Milano on my nice long 7-hour trip.
Yeah.
It was lovely.
It's lovely. Yeah, it's interesting, this being with Ernesto, it's we just talked about, with Alec Bradley going gatekeeper was Ernesto.
Originally, yeah.
And then it switched over to Plasencia due to what they just couldn't.
Yeah.
And I think also that was at a time, also this is coming out more recently. The Gatekeeper project was 2019, going through the pandemic stuff and everything else that was changing. So that, I think, again, my theory is that could have played a factor in the Gatekeeper was just gaining traction. And Ernesto's factor is like, dude, we're dealing with our stuff right now.
Yeah.
So it could be that.
Well, I think
because I know Alec Bradley also had issues with Rice's Cubanas and Plasencia getting product in. So it was kind of I think everyone was trying to navigate through that part of our time here.
Was 2019 one of the years that Ernesto had a number one? Because he's had two number ones. He had the Encore and the Pledge. Yeah. I think it may have been the Pledge was number one for 2019.
Yeah, 2020
or 2020.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean, yeah, he's definitely been keeping himself busy, and he's gotten some high accolades.
He's doing well.
Yeah,
he's doing okay.
For those that don't remember, EPC Ernesto was the gentleman that back in the day created La Gloria Cubana.
Correct.
And then eventually sold that brand off and has his own brand. So,
that's right.
One of the other cigars he's really well known for, even though it's not the most highly decorated cigar, but he's definitely known for it, is the Inch, which is the reason it's called an Inch is it's a 64 ring gauge. It's an inch in diameter. Yeah.
Well, he also did bigger ones too.
Yeah, he did.
Which Ernesto, from my understanding, with the La Gloria Cubana, like Serie R was like the classic one, right? Bigger cigars.
Mm-hmm.
That was early on in the bigger cigar ring gauge or, craze. I mean, that was very early on.
Did that predate some of the Asylum?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, so he was doing the Asylum stuff before Asylum was.
Yeah, I think people thought he was kind of crazy doing that. All right. You guys want to know what we're talking about here?
Sure.
I'll tell you in the...
Are we...
You reading it?
I am.
You read ahead. You're supposed to follow along.
Wait, so sometimes I'm not prepared. Sometimes
Correct.
I'm too prepared. Jesus.
Right. Get it right. Know what I'm thinking.
There's no pleasing you.
I know. It's very difficult for people around me. All right, let's go. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 253, part 2, Beyond the BS. In part 1, if you guys are just listening live, make sure you check back, or if you're listening on the podcast apps, click over to part 1 of 253 here. And we were talking about the Penelope barrel strength, which is 4-grain, 3 mash bills blended. And we talked about that, are still enjoying that. And thanks to Shannon Chapman, who is still joining us on the podcast in the garage. Shannon, welcome back again.
Thank you for having me.
Good reach there, Nate. We talked about that. We added some water. We enjoyed it. We did everything on that and rated it. And then also we're smoking the Cuba Aliados cabinet selection, which is the version of that blend, which is an old name that Oliva purchased the rights to. And Ernesto Perez Carrillo is making this blend. JRE Cigars is making the original blend, which is not the original blend. Again, there was also one I didn't throw into the first part, that there was some limited, I think, store exclusive or something with the Cuba Aliados name that was made by AJ Fernandez. So there you go. Even more complications there. So little all over the place there.
But I like it.
Yep. Shannon did, he rated it the highest tonight. He gave it a 9, the cigar and the whiskey. And then check out towards the end of part 1 our reviews as well on the whiskey, the cigar, and the pairing ratings. Part 2, I want to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. We appreciate the support. The Cuba Aliados, both the original blend and the cabinet selection are available there. Robusto and Toro sizes are available. So if you can't get to a local brick and mortar, can't find them, check them out. It is a limited edition, especially the Ernesto Perez Carrillo one. I think it was, 10,000 boxes in the U.S., 15,000 boxes total of 20. So those are available now, but they may run out depending on if they have more tobacco, or if Ernesto can put some more out if they have good feedback. The Altadis cigar for part 2 that we're going to be lighting up here shortly. Might be longer than shortly because, again, this is smoking very well. The Monte Cristo Nicaragua series. Made by AJ Fernandez. So thank you guys at Altadis and the BS Cigar Company. The gold and silver are available, 3 sizes each. Gold by Plasencia, and the silver is made by Espinosa. Thank you guys as well. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast for the monthly contributions. Sign up. There's $5, $10, and $25 tiers there. And then also Venmo at Bourbon and BS for the one-time contributions. We appreciate all you guys. And then also for the swag for the show, which we've got some cool stuff on there. Buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. They are based out of St. Louis. They do some great work. Print to order. I was really kind of nervous about this one when he said he could do a full color logo on there.
Yeah.
And it pops.
Which, for those that can't tell on the feed, it is that barrelhead logo on the.
It's on the screen.
Oh, it's on the screen.
It's right there.
Where I'm pointing. Thanks for playing, Shannon.
Super smooth, guys. And for those on the audio, you have no idea what we're talking about. Fantastic. We're really good at this podcasting thing.
It's only been almost 5 years.
That reminds me, please drink responsibly. I'll put that on the screen there for you. Guys, also share, like, and review and all that good stuff as well. Tonight's topic.
Oh, yeah.
Shannon?
Are we tired of talking about the same stuff? Well, hello.
So that can be, for those that are loyal listeners, are you tired of hearing, we have similar topics. We got to go all over the board, depending on the guests, especially if we have special guests. Not saying Shannon's not special, but when we have someone from the industry and we're able to keep them on, it's always interesting to have the people from either the bourbon industry, from the cigar industry. It's when they do stick around for part 2 and get them kind of out of their more comfort zone when it comes to podcasts.
Yeah.
More recently was probably Tom Lazuka.
Yep.
He was able to tune in remotely, which we had a great time with him. And I think, and he even said he really enjoyed it. I mean, it's always fun to hear some of these guys that do podcasts, they do interviews with all the different publications from both the bourbon side. I know Ann Dimmick, who was with Watershed, now is with the Ohio Liquor, OHLQ. She always seems to enjoy, part 2 as well. Says it's the best part, even though she's all about bourbon. So it's fun. So I don't know if you guys want to take it that way. So those that have been listening, we can do that. The way I kind of described this, though, in the topic feed here is, as we are getting into this new year, does it seem like we are talking about the same stuff? Shannon, are you listening? Yeah. Whether you're watching the news, on social media, among your coworkers and friends and more, how do you actually move forward? Or are we destined to keep living the same path? I was thinking about what can we talk about, and I keep kind of, without getting into the current events, I started thinking about this, and it's like, yeah, we do on the show. We talk in part 2 about a lot of the similar topics, where people are at. Shannon, you've shared a bit of your stuff. I think more on the other side of the table recently, about what you're going through. You're doing some changes in your life. Nate, you're trying to really progress this year already, which I love seeing. I've had a great year, career-wise. It's been pretty steady. We're planning the 10 event again. That's my big kind of, hand and face project right now. Had a great year, first year of a new relationship, which has been fantastic. It's So it's not always just like on repeat. I mean, we talk about getting in a rut sometimes. I don't think that's where the three of us are at right now. But it's like without getting necessarily all the way into like current events. I'm watching the news this morning, you know, this evening, and you know, you see some of these things that are happening on the news. And we had such a polarized last couple years, you know, 2020, 2021, even now getting into 2023. It's like the same stories, just with different names and faces. You know what I mean? You know, whether it be the crime, the shooting, you know, like you mentioned the Kroger up the street. I don't know if you saw that story. There was a shooting there last night. The guy apparently had a restraining order from someone in the family, but they basically found him in North Carolina, and he's been detained now, and they're trying to bring him back, all within 24 hours. And, you know, of course, then I see people like posting it on social media that are friends that, you know, from the area. Everyone's like, oh my God, you know, I can't believe I'll never go back to that Kroger again. The area is really going downhill. It's happening everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, these are the same stories that we've been talking about for years now. And everyone says, oh, it's getting worse, it's getting worse. Yeah, I mean, maybe. But I mean, some of these current events, you saw the congressman, I think, where, I don't know if you saw that Santos thing. You have a congressman that totally apparently lied completely. Said he had like a college education, you know, graduated in the top 1% of his class. Nope. Didn't go to college. You know what I mean?
Like,
and now everyone's calling for his resignation. And then you got the new Speaker of the House that's doing that. I'm like, everyone's like, oh my God. And everyone flips out about some of the stuff, the different causes in the world. I don't want to sound, I guess, so callous, but it's almost like, as it says, are we tired of talking about the same stuff? I mean, it's just like you just fill in the blanks, right? Like, oh my God, a politician lied about his background. Oh my God, you know, like, who would have thought that would never happen? It's like,
it happens all the time.
What are you talking about?
I mean, and it doesn't matter.
Like I said, I'm not.
It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you are on. You see that from both sides too.
The problem is, it's just so pushed in our face. The most horrendous acts you'll see of human nature just push you in your face, and it's always at the forefront of all conversations. I think it's up to us to weed that out and kind of get back to a base level of, you know, life and friendship and what's really happening outside of the sphere of crime and politics. That's just a thing that I think distracts everybody from real connections and real friendships and real, because you saw over that the last, you know, presidential cycle that it just tore people apart. Friends, families, and I made it my mission just to leave that crap behind and just focus on more wholesome things. My friends, what we're into, what we're doing, you know, you guys are just, I would rather hear about your guys' life than some dude that lied about his freaking shit to get into Congress or whatever he did. I mean, let them deal with that. We're just going to deal with our real lives.
Well, I mean, it kind of comes down to the size of your circle, right? Like,
absolutely.
Like, you have your own circle, your life, what goes on around you. A lot of the stuff that you see on the news, like the big headlines, those happen so far outside your circle that on a daily basis, I mean, yes, there are some things politically and socially that may have an impact on your life, but you're the one that still has the control of where your life goes and what you do and, you know, how you get through each day. But, you know, all those other things are so far outside your circle that you can't control. But yet that's all that seems to get pushed is everything you can't control. And it kind of distracts people away from controlling what they have the ability to control.
Yeah, I made a little mission of mine last year to keep politics out of the barbershop with just, you know, my conversations, whatever else, whatever they want to do. It just leads to, because everybody's all over the map when whoever's come in there, everybody's on a different side. I'd rather not deal with that and just focus on, you know, my client, what's going on in their life, their family. Those are the better conversations. They're more fulfilling for me and hopefully for them. It's made my life simpler, you know, not focusing who's trying to get into the Senate or the whatever. But
I think that's one of the good things about barbershop or a cigar shop is a lot of times the conversations that take place in those environments, they're not the big national issue conversations. It's more personal than that. And, outside of social media, I don't think there's a whole lot of venues that people explore that give them the opportunity to talk about what's going on directly in their lives. Everything else is a broader picture. No one really focuses on, the personal side. But I think a barbershop, a cigar shop, that's where there tends to be more focus on those personal issues. There's not a whole lot of times in the cigar shop where you have a group of cigar smokers, male or female, mixed company, that are sitting around and they're necessarily talking about political issues. That does happen, but I think they tend to focus more on the personal, like what is going on in your life. Like that's what I want to hear. If I want to hear what's going on politically, I'll turn on the TV, I'll turn on social media, whatever. Yeah. I can't find that stuff about you.
Right.
So I want to ask you, while we have the opportunity, how are things going with you? And I think some people they're not necessarily prepared for that conversation because all they focus on, or not necessarily focus, but all they see is all those broad topics that no one ever cares about their issues. So when someone actually asks them genuinely about what's going on in their life, because there's a lot of people, I mean, we all have that conversation like, hey, how's it going? Fine.
Sun shining, not here, but
yeah.
Shun's.
But I mean, you ask a lot of people like, hey, how's it going? Probably the majority of your answer is fine. Especially if you're asking a bunch of guys. Fine. It's going all right. But when you actually sit there and say, no, how are you? How's it going for you? That gives them the outlet to actually talk about what's going on that they don't normally get in other avenues.
So that friend, though, that you try to help out that's been going through some stuff. And every time you talk to him,
I'm familiar.
It's always the same thing.
Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to relate here to what you guys are talking about. And I feel as though like that's what we are coming out of now, where that is what's been going on. Like turn on the news. A lot of people say I stopped watching the news. And social media, I hear people are like, I'm unplugging, I'm deleting my social media accounts and all that stuff. And but there's that friend that's going through stuff, and you listen to him, you try to give him advice, and we've talked about that on the show before, and they just never really change, and all they do is complain about that. I feel like that's what I saw on a lot of the social media. The same people are just always upset about something. You know what I mean? It's like, God, if I looked at your social media feed and you're talking about all these big causes, or like, whatever, the politician that did this or the president that did this. And it's like, I hope that this is not all you spend your 24 hours a day on.
Oh, I had to silence.
Because if you do that, it's just constant. It's constant negativity.
Yep.
And you're not changing anything by doing that, in my opinion. You think you are, but you're not. And I also think that some people take those drastic things about now, like they cut out of social media. People stopped voting. I mean, it's all, again, these are the same things, but like people that complain a lot about it, then they don't vote about anything. And they're like, well, what does it do? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help out anything. It doesn't change anything. It's like, well, yeah, maybe to a point. The machine is bigger than any of us right now, especially in this country and many countries. But it's just, I feel like it's exhausting talking about the same thing over and over again with no real goal of doing anything about it.
Well, when you're talking about the giant political issues and you're getting all fired up about it, like how much of an impact do you as an individual actually have over that? Not a whole lot. Let's be honest. The vast majority of us do not have an impact on what happens day to day in Congress or in the White House or in the Supreme Court.
No.
Now, we can vote people in there, but let's face it, the people that we send to Washington, they're going to line up with the other people that have been established, and things are just going to keep going the way they've been going. a lot of time.
Well, a story like that though, with the guy I brought up, you know what I mean? It's like the news stories haven't transitioned yet to interviewing people from the area that he was elected, which is actually the big one, right? So if I voted a certain way and I voted for someone, I found out that he was all a lie, we should be talking to that body of people, right? So that happens. I mean,
is that a newly elected person into Congress, or they've been there?
I'm not,
okay.
Again, trying to keep treetop level stuff. I'm just saying, just in a mindset there is, again, like, I think that should be something that, again, don't just talk about the problems and the drama and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, there's processes I would hope to be there of how you can remedy those situations.
So as you thought about this topic tonight, did you have a, like in your mind, were you thinking like maybe kind of taking the second part in I don't say a new direction, but focus more on something or leave certain aspects of conversations out?
In this?
Just in general, just not tonight, but just in general as we move forward with this year.
With the show? Or just in general, like with
the show,
with part two.
Yeah, with part two.
With part two, I'm going to put this more towards the community and the followers that I want to hear what you guys have to say. I think this is something that, you know, there are other podcasts I listen to, and again, doing 250 plus episodes now. I think that, yeah, in 2023 we can, you know, I'm all for it. I think this is something that we can hopefully within, you know, weeks leading up to it or whatever, turn to some of the viewers and listeners and see what they want to talk about. If they have questions, if they have anything else. I mean, it's going to take some crowd participation here, because it'll still come back on us, but do this week after week and coming up with these conversations. I mean, I can give you, you know, my opinions of it. You guys, whoever's on here, Shannon, Nate, or anyone else, any of the guests out there, you guys listening, I love seeing the comments. I just would love to kind of do a little bit more with this and try to work as a community of listeners and followers and everything to really get more benefit to them, as opposed to just what's going on necessarily in our lives, my life, you know, trying to, you know, there will be still some episodes, I think, like that. Yeah. And I mean, again, if we don't have it, if we have a special guest on, you know, again, what they want to talk about, stuff like that, part two can do that. But the Beyond the BS, I feel like, I don't say that this was entirely just for the show in part two. Are we tired of talking about the same stuff? It's just, it's one of those things that I think as we get older, you start noticing that it is like, you know, we talked the whole why bother last week with AJ. It's kind of like,
great topic.
You know, I was in the gym tonight and there were a lot of new faces. I work out between work and the podcast on Wednesday afternoons, evenings. And, you know, by the time I was done with my workout around like 5:15, 5:30, it was just full and I could barely finish my workout. And it's like, cool, like the New Year's resolution people, or either, you know, and they weren't all like, I mean, some people were in shape, some people were like obviously starting out. I love that they're there, but I'm like, seriously, like, again, like, okay, it's fucking January, like we're doing this again. Oh, like a new year, new me. Like this is the year I'm gonna do it. It's like, I hope it is, but why do we have these trends as people, especially in this country, that it's the same shit, different day type stuff? And is there real progress being made? I know everyone's at different stages of all, like, whether it be what I was just talking about with the gym, but also, you know, with the health stuff, with the job. It's like, what is it about it that we keep running into these same types of things in our own lives and people around you's lives? And it's like, I think as people get older, they've seen it all. You know, you see younger people, same age, older people, they go through the same shit. And it's like, I don't think that I have all the answers. I know I don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers on this show, but it's like, you know, do people even listen to what, you know, experience brings? Do you have a different perspective? You know, I'm not saying that, you know, 5 years from now, I might've slipped off from going to the gym and everything like that. And I use New Year's. I mean, again, we're all subject to these things, but I feel like as we're getting older, as you go through life, you've seen a lot of this, and a lot of it's very similar repeat scenarios. And I'm not saying it's not worth fighting for yourself when we're talking about the current events and stuff like that. It's just like, there is such a truth to history repeats itself. It's just, you're plugging in different players or different people and maybe different scenarios, but people just freak out about it. And I don't want to sound, again, calloused, But like seriously,
I think
I
though.
I don't panic anymore when I see that. You know, it's like I said, like they're just shooting, you know, down the street at a grocery store or like where I work at Easton. It's like, oh, there was a, you know, a carjacking or something else, and I'm just like, oh, okay. I hope everyone's all right. I hope that, you know,
You almost become numb to it.
Yeah, I hope the police were able to help out if something happens to someone in my life. You know, all these, you know, I mean, I kind of sound real bad here, but you know, whatever.
Well, I think
Wait.
Sorry.
So the same weekend that it happened to Hamlin on the Bills,
Yeah.
and everyone saw it on national television, and all of a sudden, all sports stations and all the like people that don't watch football, people that do watch football. I appreciate people looking out and really kind of having a come to Jesus moment in their life. But I got to be honest, the same people that changed their profile picture for, it's going to sound Ukraine, for COVID, for, you know, every cause out there, you know, Cuba for the day and a half that people were posting about Cuba. You know, it's like all of a sudden I see these Bills logos or, you know, pray for him. I think, yeah, I'm very happy that the young man is okay at this point and coming back. The same weekend, I had someone that we all know.
Oh gosh,
that different scenario, but also basically had the Widowmaker, but fortunately had good friends around him that were able to provide CPR on vacation. And he's now still recovering, but had the doctor basically tell him that if your friends weren't there and doing what they did, you wouldn't be here, because by the time the EMTs got there, you would have been dead. And so I look at this stuff and I see all these people freaking out about a guy they've never met. And I think it's terrible what happened to him. And again, it's hard not to get with current events, you know, but you know, it was such a big story, and everyone, like a lot of my friends and everyone was just like, oh my God. And, you know, my girlfriend was really hit by it, but she saw that. She had someone in her family deal with some health issues and is still dealing with some health issues as well. She knew about our friend that had a heart attack, and it's like, it beats people up. And I think that I've gotten to the point where I'm not numb to it, but I wish for the best. And I hope that I'm prepared that if I'm hit with that situation in my personal life that you were talking about, Nate's your circle and your inner circle and stuff like that. And I talked about that on this podcast before when we were talking about, you know, when I came up with, you know, or not came up with, but it was explaining the social circles and how people are way more concerned about people they've never met than they are with
tertiary,
their own home life, and their home life is falling apart. But if you look at like their social media, you talk to them about anything, it's like, oh my God, did you see what's happening around the world and across the world, halfway across it? Did you see what happened to this Bills player, you know, football, which I don't even watch football, but it's terrible. And then you saw like people on the girls on The View were talking about how, you know, they need to, you know, change football and stuff. I was like, you guys don't even watch football. It's like, it was like everyone just like all of a sudden comes to, you know, these major strides to try to save everyone.
Jump on the hot topic.
It's like, hang on. Like, first of all, we're not invincible as people. I hate to say it, people die every day, but they do constantly. I think it's just having a little bit of mentality where it's like, yes, it's good to talk about this stuff. I feel like anything, whatever it might be, whatever the situation is, what's happening. But I think you have to, for me, it's you have your head on a little bit without getting numb to it, like you said, Nate. But it's like, yeah, try to process it. I think processing it and having a way to process it, you find yourself maybe not talking about the same stuff all the time, just with the different players. And it's like there's a little bit more of a stability there that I think that we can all work on, because I get emotional about stuff. I have things impact my life, things that you see, like historical events and stuff like that. But I feel as though sometimes if you have a different viewpoint than me on a situation, especially the bigger current events or whatever, all of a sudden it's like then people form opinions of you as a person just based on that one scenario.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes when you see that repetitive issue come up, like Steve, you talked about, you know, seeing, you know, every January you see new people in the gym, right? You see them in January, probably won't see them in March. And you see that year after year. I think one way to look at it is, and also with what Chad said, the last 2 weeks and they'll be gone. I think
I don't know if he's talking about the gym or if he's talking about the social causes on social media.
I think he was talking about the gym.
I think it applies to both.
It does. But I think what that does is it provides an opportunity. So when you see the new people at the gym, and you said some of those new people in the gym, some of them were already skinny, some of them not so much, but it provides an opportunity to be a source of encouragement for them. I had seen a clip of a gentleman's in great shape, and he was at the gym. There's a bunch of guys around him that are all jacked and, great shape and everything. And he sees a woman who's overweight and in a wheelchair, and she's in a wheelchair because of her weight, not because paralyzation or anything like that. But she's in the gym and she's trying, right? And this guy went out of his way to go to her and say that she was an inspiration to him, even though he was already in fantastic shape. Because let's face it, if you're in great shape and you go to a gym and you're surrounded by people who are in great shape, it's like, cool, you're all the same. Like, there's not that big of a difference between the two, between any of you. But when you see someone who's actually taking those steps to try and better themselves, whether it be physical condition, their career, personal relationships, whatever it is, when you see them making an effort, some of those people have a really hard time sticking with it if they don't see the immediate benefit.
Okay.
They don't realize that sometimes the benefit takes a while to develop. And I think sometimes that provides us the opportunity to actually talk to that person and provide a sense of encouragement to stick with it.
Yeah.
So when that guy went up to that woman and said that she, in her physical condition, her physical condition was not what was inspiring him. Her choice to actually try.
No, I get it. I mean,
that's what was an inspiration. And because he made a comment to that person, that inspired her to want to stick with it and keep going. And I think some people overlook how much of an impact they can have just by providing the smallest compliment or being there for that person. Like if someone wants to change their career, they may want to do something that the rest of us think is just absolutely ridiculous and insane.
Yeah.
But, and that'll have an impact on them. And a lot of times it'll be in a negative way. But if they have that one person that is actually appreciative and gives them a compliment for trying to do whatever it is they're trying to do, that one compliment can have a bigger impact than all the negatives.
I agree.
So I think sometimes we have to look for the opportunity to be that one compliment.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. Shannon, do you have something to say? I felt like you were leaning in there.
No, I was just thinking about a bunch of different things as we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like the new year, how we're going forward, and
pardon my reach here.
Oh, you're excused.
I just don't want people to not be able to see your pretty face.
Well, yeah, it is. The lights. Yeah, the lights hitting me pretty good. It's all right.
What light doesn't?
I don't know. Like in the barbershop, my question right now to all my clients as we start the new year, we're a little over a week into this new year, and I was asking them, so like, what's in store for the new year? Are you looking at doing something different or changing something in your life? And so far, it hasn't been a whole lot of change. People are moving straight forward with what's going on, and that's fine. I mean, if their life's going good. But
sure.
I don't know. Just life is crazy. I think we're coming out of 2 crazy years, and it's starting to feel normal again. And I feel like people are leaning into more normal things this coming year. Yeah, there's a lot of political stuff out there, but I don't hear much when I'm out. I don't know. Just this year feels like a maybe it's just me thinking this. I feel like this year is going to be a transformational year for people.
Okay.
I can't explain why. I feel like people are a little more hopeful for what's coming this year. A lot of bad news in the money spectrum, recession and all that kind of stuff, but people aren't harping on that. They're talking about family stuff again and getting out and actually doing traveling and, being with more family and more oriented. Like people are trying to build their families for once. I got one client has 3 kids and he just told me last week he's having a reverse vasectomy to have more kids.
Get after it. You know what I mean?
I'm like, damn, son. So
Go Nick Cannon.
Came at the end of that.
Right. So I don't know. It just, I have this weird perspective of when I talk to people. I mean, you guys see it in the cigar shop too, but I don't know. I get to talk to people more on a personal level,
Sure.
a more intimate level, and I've noticed the conversations are different. It's not more of a woe is me, gloom and doom. It's the conversations seem a little brighter right now. Maybe it's the beginning of the year brightness and it wears off, but I hope not.
Yeah, there's a new beginning side of it. I would say that I think that with this question up on the screen there for the topic, are we tired of talking about the same stuff? I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people are tired of talking about a lot of the same stuff. Mm-hmm. I think that after what this generation has now gone through, whatever generation, how old you are, but everyone alive in the last, whatever age you are, whether you be, obviously you're too young, you don't understand what's happened, but you know what I mean? If you're, if you're 8 years old to 80 some years old, I think you've kind of, it's not the numb or, becoming numb to it, but it's just like you're talking about, financially, things are a little tighter, we're going through the recessions or whatever you want to call it. Interest rates are up, all that stuff. A lot of people are like, they're upset about it, but in this country, I feel there are a good chunk of people. I'd venture to say the majority of people that are just like, kind of, it is what it is. I mean, like, gotta just adapt to it. You know what I mean? Yeah, things are a little tighter. Gas prices are up. Now they're back down. Like they're gonna go up again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, housing market was real tight. People were still buying houses, couldn't buy a house. Now they're building again. Now the interest rates are up. Now people that are actually in the know, they're looking at it and you're like, well, yeah, if I would have bought a house that was 50 grand more with a lower interest rate and with a similar down payment, if I buy it now for 50 grand less, my monthly payment is actually higher. You know what I mean? Like people are just like, I think it's like, it was a big awakening few years here that I think people are tired of it. When I was thinking about this topic, I think people are tired of just talking about the same stuff. Yeah. I think overall people are just, they're just like, like, oh, so-and-so got COVID. Are they okay? Yeah, no, they're fine. Okay, good. There's not like this huge, battle about, well, are they, some people still do it, but I mean, oh, were they vaccinated or like, what's going on, like all this stuff. It's just kind of like, oh, they had COVID. Okay. Like, are they okay? Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Oh, okay, good. I'm not even trying to like get in that debate anymore. It's like, well, are they vaccinated? Like, oh yeah, they're okay. And like go into this whole thing like I would have been like a year and a half ago. Now it's just like, oh, they're okay. Fantastic. How are you? I feel like you just kind of move on,
Yeah, I feel like last year was like a big frenzy between cars, houses, and all that kind of stuff. And I think people have come out of the fog of that frenzy and kind of are settling back into, for lack of a better term, a normal life. And they understand like shit was so hyped up last year. You got to buy a house, you got to buy a car, blah, blah, blah. And you couldn't get any of it. So now they're like realizing, well, shit, I didn't need that house and I don't need that car. And what I got right now is good enough. And people are just settling back into their life this year, I think.
There's not as much panic about everything, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good word. Yeah.
And I think that's why we do. And again, I don't want to come across, because thank God I don't have a big following, but you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not talking bad about that Bills player. I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be alarmed to see something like that or hope for the best for someone, whether we know them or not. But it's like, I think that's such a big story because people, for a lot of the other things going on in the world, that was something that it strikes close to home that could happen to anyone. Yeah. It could happen to someone you love. I don't if you just listen to that soundbite of me talking earlier, I'm not retracting my words. I was getting somewhere. I think people are tired of talking about the same stuff all over again. So when something happens, it's something to talk about. And again, not taking away the importance of someone's life or anything like that. It's just like people are just like it rattles them out of their day-to-day life, and it makes them think and react to something where I do think there's a majority of people. I'll speak to this country, and I won't speak to the rest of the world. I know sometimes Ray listens, other people from other countries will listen to this. But I think that in this country, people are a bit just, we're going to figure it out. And, as we get to the next, which is going to be right around the corner, the next presidential election, there's going to be people that are going to be that loud minority about all the, the issues at hand. And a lot of people, I think, are just going to be like, yeah, I don't, just stop talking. Like, I get it. Like, you're passionate about it. You feel a certain way. It's just like, they're tired of it. They're tired of that. You talk about the prices of everything. It's like, oh, did you see the eggs or this? It's like, yeah, I saw.
Yeah.
It's like, aren't you outraged? It's like, it sucks. I'm not going to go start my own farm.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to, have a chicken coop out back in the suburbs. You know what I mean?
All right.
Some people are, but it's like, some people like just went like, well, I'm going to react and do it that way. But most people are just like, yeah, I can piss and moan and, get all bent out of shape about it. But it's like, I'm just going to try to make it work. Things, life can suck, life can change, but you got to make it work. It's like, all right, well, I'll have to eat differently, or I'm going to maybe have to work a different job, or, I'm going to have to, do whatever. It's just like, I feel like just people are just tired of it.
I think with the football thing with the Bills player, I think people got reminded how violent football is. And that's how it's always been that way. But I think they were reintroduced to how violent it is. We're used to seeing a knee injury or an ankle or a shoulder, and this was like a pretty significant,
dude's heart
injury.
stopped.
Yeah. But it's the game. It's violent. That's how, from Pee Wee up until you make it to the NFL, what you signed up for. Going in, there's gigantic men trying to hurt you and stop you with that ball. So people, for whatever reason, have gotten up in arms about football's too violent. It's been the same since it's been created.
And if you look at the actual situation that brought all that up, it wasn't because the game is so violent.
No,
it wasn't even this dramatic,
and the game
violent
is safer
hit.
now than it ever has been, with the pads, the helmets, the conditioning of the play. Like, everything is so much, for lack of terms, safer. But there's still going to be injuries. There's still going to be somebody gets pretty badly hurt.
Yeah, and I think it's a reaction to it, and I can appreciate that. I think it snaps some people out of it, and they overreact without knowing all the facts, because again, it's a knee-jerk emotional reaction.
Oh yeah,
which is fine. I think we all have that when you see stuff like that. But then you look into it, you read up on the stories and the updates, and like, if you are that into that situation, it's like, all right, so what were the circumstances? What did the doctors, did they release exactly what happened to him? Most people won't be able to tell you that, I feel like.
Well,
they just see, oh, he's released, thank God, you know what I mean? He's going back home. And it's like, yeah, thank God, for sure. That's great. But it's like, do you know actually do you care that much, or you just care about feeling the way you do?
Well, how many times or people did you see after that incident initially occurred where they were asking about like vaccination because of the correlation with myocarditis and the vaccine? Like, how many times did you see people asking about that or bringing that up when it turns out that was actually not related to what had happened? Because when I actually saw a replay of what happened, my first thought was back when I was playing baseball and a little leaguer somewhere in the country, a pitcher took a line drive back at the chest and it stopped his heart. And then after that, a bunch of little leagues across the country made it mandatory that you had to wear the heart guard. Like, when I saw the play, that was my reaction, not, the whole vaccine thing. Like, because I had experienced other things, seen that happen before, I didn't just sit there and go, oh, it's probably because he was a vaccinated player. No.
Yeah, the injury is more prone in baseball, lacrosse, field hockey. that's more of that. You'll see those injuries in that because that ball's moving so fast.
Yeah, it's a 1 in 100 million chance that you take an impact to your chest at that specific millisecond of time that would cause that type of reaction. But as soon as that happened, a lot of people wanted to attribute it to whatever fit their cause. They wanted to attribute that player's issue to that. And now here's something to think about. You don't have to answer it. But when it came out, like what actually caused the incident, if it wasn't what those people thought it was, how quick were they to actually take back what they had said?
No, they just went silent.
Exactly.
They fade back into the shadows.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It didn't fit the narrative they wanted to talk about.
Yeah. And probably not many people have talked about the Old Dominion player that in this past week, similar thing happened to them too. Like they just collapsed on the court. Like because I think because of what happened with the NFL player, with it being on Monday Night Football and it being
a national stage.
Yeah, national stage. Yeah. Millions of people watching it. Like that had a huge impact. When you're talking about Old Dominion college basketball,
not on a national stage.
Not on a national stage. That game wasn't even televised. So people really didn't care.
So I don't know if you guys want to shift gears from that topic.
No, let's talk about the Bills.
The Bills.
Go ahead.
Go Cowboys.
So after New Year's settled down, you're over the first couple days. Did you get to sit and reflect on the last year and moving into this year? This is what I've been asking all my clients.
Yeah.
Is there a new route you want to take in your life? Is there a new avenue or chances? I don't know if you want to talk about what you got going on. I could understand not.
That's fair.
But yeah, like is there a new step, something you want to try, something not fitness, not any health stuff, just relationship, life, career? Is there something you want to dive into, dabble in, or change moving through 23?
Well, I think, sometimes we throw shade on, New Year's, the whole New Year, new me, because it's an arbitrary date. When if you really wanted to make those changes, you can do them any time of the year. Now, sometimes, the whole New Year thing inspires people, and that's great. But we've talked about it before, like don't wait for a date on the calendar to make you want to change what's going on. The things that I have changed or am pursuing in my personal life or career-wise, those didn't come about because it's now 2023. Those were things that I was pursuing and trying for last year, or even the year more last year than before. It just so happened that recently an opportunity became available. I'd been searching for a different career change, and within hours of submitting an application to one particular place.
Sure, you can talk about this.
No one from my company's watching this.
So I was like, if you want to dance around,
Shannon and I have set our piece. Go ahead.
No, people that have watched this before know that I've not necessarily been the happiest in my current role and what I've been doing. And there are things that the people above me could do that could change that, but they haven't done that. And, I can only do so much. I can only do what I can control. One of the things I can control is pursuing avenues that allow me to do something that I enjoy doing and that I get joy out of doing. It just so happened that after the new year, an opportunity presented itself, and I started pursuing that opportunity. And yesterday I had a 35-minute phone call, with the person in charge of that. And, today that person I scheduled a face-to-face next week.
So we'll have to see where it goes.
Still have to wait and see. I still have to do my part.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
it's got to be a good fit. I'm not trying to
absolutely
soften it, but I mean, the reality is that it has to be mutual to both sides in your mind and their mind. So I mean, it's not just because obviously I'd love to hear, you made a career change, and we'd hate to hear, again, not to be a pessimist, but it didn't work out. But I think that is, again, a way to process what I was trying to say earlier also about, like, you've been processing this for a long time, Nate, and now you're continuing to do stuff about this. And I appreciate you sharing that. I just, again, I think that you're doing some,
well, I mean, because
Shannon's point, I mean, you've got some goals that it's not necessarily reflective just on the new year, but I mean, you've got the new year, it's here. So you got a plan of attack, and I think it's hopefully going to go well.
That's the hope. The key is because, and I think it helps because I've experienced it multiple times throughout last year. If it doesn't go the way I want to, I'm not going to let that stop me from trying.
That's perfect.
I'm not going to let that stop me from bettering myself. Yeah. Even if it doesn't work out, because I know I can do better, and I think I need to be afforded the opportunity to do better. I can only control what I can control. If I just stop trying and just keep
back to work
and just keep plugging along, doing what I do every single day, like, cool, I'll still make a paycheck. I won't be happy with some of the specifics. So, I would rather do something that I enjoy, because I want to get the joy out of what I do. We talked about it before, and we make fun of the saying, if you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
We don't make fun of it. We just commented on it.
Yeah, we all know, because we love cigars. Steve, you and I both have worked in the cigar industry
True.
for 10 years plus.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's something we enjoy doing. And it's
what are you trying to say here?
I lost my train of thought, but
it's fair. That's okay. It's okay. We can shift.
A little ADD going on in the mind. But when you find something, when you find the opportunity to do something that you enjoy doing, you will work harder. You will work more to do that job because it brings you joy. I think if you're doing a job that you don't like, you will put forth just enough effort to get by. But when you actually are doing something you enjoy, you want to keep doing that more and more. So Shannon made we talked about it the first time we had Shannon on the podcast. He was talking about the process he had started to become a barber because he was unhappy being a truck driver.
We'll let him talk about himself here.
Well, but I'm saying we've heard Shannon talk about it multiple times. He was unhappy being a truck driver. Sure. He wanted to become a barber. That was what he wanted to do. He became a barber right before the COVID shutdown.
And we have talked about that before.
And Shannon did not necessarily let the COVID shutdown prevent him from growing.
Are you saying this inspired you?
He didn't stop trying. He didn't stop perfecting and getting better at what he was doing. He used it as an opportunity to grow and be better.
Yeah.
So that way, once the barbershop he was working at reopened, he could go back in a better him.
Right.
So I'm saying he really enjoys doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because of that, he wants to work harder and work more
for
that. I think, Steve, you being full-time in the cigar industry.
Stick to the question. You don't have to run down the table here. Let's talk about you. No, I'm just saying. No, I'm just like, now you're answering his question. I think get back on track, because you said you lost your train of thought. I don't know if that, I mean, I appreciate you talking about Shannon, and you're going to talk about me. I think for you though, it's you are trying to do something that you find passion in. And that's why I said, did Shannon's story inspire you? From what I'm hearing, it did. I think that, I mean, it's not the only thing that inspired you, but I mean,
true.
that's something that, I agree with what you're saying. So for the new year, as Shannon, the original question, like now you're going on a path of it's not going to let it stop you, because you want to continue to find something you have a passion for, as opposed to just doing well at a job, which, if I can comment on you, I think that's what it's been for you for a while, is that you are doing something that may not be what you want to do, but it's something that you are doing it. So you're going to be the best. Like the age old example is like, not everyone, is going to be a CEO, but if you're going to be a janitor, be the best janitor you can be.
Well, I think Rob Wilson kind of commented that when we had him on the podcast a few weeks ago. There were some comments he made to me. They were directed at me about, just being a worker, being a survivor.
Sure.
Like, if I will do what I have to do to provide for my family, whether it's what I want to do or not, I will do what I can to the best of my ability. What I have to do is get what I want to do and working hard at what I am doing align. I have to bring those two together to where I'm doing something I want to do and do it the best
It sounds like you're on the right path, because you keep, you're in the middle of an effort to do so. And I think that's great. And that, yeah. Shannon, answer your question, when you were asking about, this year, is there anything that, you're trying to do? Or for me, it's I want to be able to, not in the sense of the topic here, are we tired of talking about the same stuff? For me, a lot of my hobbies and things, it's remained consistent, but as opposed to a lot of the New Year's resolutions thing with, whether it be like health or just how I spend my time, I like some of the constants in my life, but I also have realized that, through the last several years, I'm talking like not just the last 5, I'm talking like, decades, like I find myself still being with the health stuff, still being that kind of like high school kid that I wanted to like start working out because of, I was skinny and, all that stuff. Like, all have that origin story or whatever it might be. Career wise, the same way. It's easy for me to kind of just get in a flow and keep doing it. And then just kind of have to keep getting myself back to what I consider my best at the time. I think for this year and going forward, but like, again, not just this year, but the mentality of the question was for me is to kind of the best I can officially lock down those interests and the hobbies and what I have deemed important as daily things, as opposed to consistently struggle to like maintain those things.
Yeah. Like
the non-negotiables in my life get defined this year so that I can really pursue other things. It's not just being complacent with, it's stuff like, taking time for yourself or taking a vacation or doing some of that stuff. I went through periods where it was like 5 years ago, I didn't take a vacation. I didn't take time off, didn't do those things. That now is hopefully a non-negotiable. I'm not saying you have to have these extravagant vacations or whatever it might be, but it's like, okay, no, I'm gonna, in a sense, be true to myself with all the other things in check and in respect for those things. But it's kind of like I had the job before where I felt guilty taking a day off. And even this job that Nate was talking about, like in the cigar shop, taking time off, it's like, yeah, you hate to put people in a bind to cover for you and all that stuff, but that needs to be, for me, a non-negotiable, that I don't take advantage of it. But it's like, no, that's the fortune I have of being in the situation I'm in the country I'm in the position I'm in, is that I am allowed some time off. It's not take it just to take it, but take it just because it's important. Those types of things,
I like that.
Schedule in some of the non-negotiables. I need to get more consistent sleep. I need to continue to, in my opinion, I'm not trying to say anything other than just my opinion, but be a strong friend for people. But again, at not necessarily all costs, but try to make myself, and I encourage everyone to do the same. That's why I'm saying this, because I feel like there are a lot of people that may listen to this at some point that may feel the same way, is that not necessarily put yourself first, but put yourself in the equation. Don't just be selfless, because sometimes if you need a day, you need an hour, you need just a moment for yourself, don't pick up the phone. If it's an emergency, obviously, you want to be there. Something small like this last weekend, we talk about Jake, you know what I mean? Like on Sunday, he moved back to the area. And it was one of those things where he had asked me to help him unload into a storage and some of the big stuff. Well, when it was all said and done, it was like, hey, I need you there around this time. And then around that time, he called me and said, hey, actually, we're way behind. I'm going to need you to help me out if you still can at this time. And it was just like, even his dad commented, I think it was on the community page when I posted on Monday night. He's like, hey, thanks so much for helping Jake out, And it's like, well, a friend needed help, so I helped him. I'm not saying that I made myself a part of the equation. If I couldn't do it, I wasn't going to like cancel like 10 things just because, hey man, you're out of. It's like you make it work to the best of your ability, and I'm happy to help. And I hope that he would do the same thing for me if I needed it, and I trust that he would. But it's like you make yourself a part of the equation. I think really for me,
it's a good line.
Thanks. I think that the non-negotiables
right
should be a big part of anyone's year this year, and I'm of the opinion that it's always relevant, and I've thought it in the past. I think this year I'm going to try to make it more important to me, and I don't want to be talking about the same stuff all the time. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes, when the repeat conversations come up, I don't necessarily want to be blunt. I don't encourage everyone to just be heartlessly blunt with some things, but it's like if a friend's coming to you with the same situation all over again, you again make yourself a part of the equation. It's like, look, we can keep talking about this. I'll listen to you as many times as you need. If you're not going to do anything about your situation, then I know I can't do anything about your situation. So that's where we're at. You figure it out, and then I'll be there to help you figure out what you want to do. So I think, again, it's valuing your own time in all aspects of life, and valuing yourself. That's a goal of mine. Again, a non-negotiable is to continue to, hopefully through my 40s now, be healthy, do things that I believe, and continue to be inspired, hopefully by others, and to learn more and continue to learn more how to do that, so that I can be around to enjoy my time off. I can enjoy the people in my life. I can enjoy my relationship with Kristen. I can, actually, not necessarily for the first time in my life, but for this time in my life, really do the best I can, knowing what I know and learning from the past in my life and my experiences, that I can figure out what my non-negotiables are and how they fit into other people's lives that are surrounding me, whether it be a professional or personal relationship or circle.
Yeah, I love that.
How about you, Shannon?
I love what you both said. I mean, it's just, with age comes wisdom, and all of our failures and mistakes in the past, we all have them. And I think this is a beautiful time, not the new year, new me stuff, but I believe the new year always brings reflection, and reflection's a huge, important part of our lives to, like you just said, kind of reset, see where we want to go that year, and not these huge changes and all this crazy stuff, but take more time for yourself. That's huge. That's to me, that's life-changing stuff when you can step back from your job or your relationships or whatever they are. Just take that time for yourself to replenish your soul, because if you're not right, you can't be right with anybody else, and it always bleeds out. It always bleeds out. Anger, whatever it is. And I really commend you for taking that stride forward.
Appreciate that. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. See you in 6 months.
Yeah. See you next week.
But you're in this situation you're moving forward with. I really hope this works out for you. I really do, because I think in what we were talking about before this, you'll kill it. I really do. I think you would be a tremendous asset. So I hope that really works out for you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's also one of those things. It's up to me.
Yeah.
It is up to you. All interject there that it's got to, like, the opportunity has to be right too.
The opportunity has to be right. The other party can give me the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to me to make the best of that opportunity.
Sure.
Like, that much does absolutely 100% rely on me. So there are some outside factors in what we go through in our lives and the decisions that we make, but still it always boils down to you as an individual, whether you're where you want to be or where you're not where you want to be. It's up to you to make the best of it while you're there. If it's not where you want to be, you keep doing what you're supposed to do while pursuing better.
So I think just to build off of your kind of words, there is to be happy with where you're going, which involves where you were and where you are. But I think that is, are you happy with the path? Are you happy with where you're going? And I think that's kind of where I'm saying with my non-negotiables and things like that is, I don't know what's going to happen between this January and next January, but that's the goal is, are you happy with where you're going? Because you can be kind of happy with where you're at. Like, to your point, Nate, in the past, it's like, you said you're a worker. You're saying, that you're going to do the best you can with all that stuff. You're happy enough with the paycheck. You're happy enough being employed. You're happy enough with all this stuff. But are you happy with where you're going?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's changed more recently again in you. And if you guys have been watching or listening to the podcast for a while, having Nate be a part of this show, it's been very impactful to me to kind of see where, he talks about his past. And, a lot of people will, comment about, how you talk about that big career change and all that. And it's like, now you're not stuck on that anymore. Like, you realize that it's like, yeah, you talked about in the past, since you were doing this earlier about Shannon, I'm going to talk about you a little bit, is that
bring it.
You were talking about how you had your foot on the brake a lot because you didn't want to go through that again. And now here we are, full circle. You're trying to be happy with, I think what I'm hearing is that you want to be happy with where you're going. And I think
it's a good summation.
With the topic, are we tired of talking about the same stuff? In the part 2, I would love to hear more from the community out there. But I mean, even on this panel and having Nate and I on here every week at this point is, it's not that I don't think people want to hear the same thing from me. And I don't think people want to hear the same stories from Nate. It's like they want to hear a little bit of, obviously, the opinions and just the after hours type stuff. And for better or worse, when I and other people have too much alcohol, but it's the fact that where are you going? Are we just talking about the past? Are we talking about the same stories again, doing this for 4 or 5 years and 250 plus episodes? It's like, yeah, you do it every week. It's like, unless you do, and we've avoided it, talking about current events, it's tough to continue to, share life experiences. If you've been a loyal listener for the last several years, you've heard what we had to say about our experiences. So it's like, where are we going? Like, I think that's, again, are we happy? Are you happy as a listener where you're going this year? To Shannon's question.
Yeah, for me, as I sit and listen to you guys, and you guys know my big life change is about to start here.
Yet again.
Yeah, round 2, baby.
It's just a boring
It's only been 3 years since you made a change.
But it's something I want to do, but in all honesty, I'm scared shitless. Honestly, I mean, I'm scared
for you.
You
Love you
know,
to death. I'm rooting for you, but yeah.
it's like that bittersweet moment. But I'm saying goodbye to my clients. I'm telling them my last day, and all my little young guys, my little guys that I cut. I've had 2 kids cry on me because I'm leaving. And it's just breaking my heart. The one kid had me in tears in the barbershop, but
may I suggest something? I know this is probably against your guys' plan. However, in the next year, because I know you don't really have a timeline on how long this venture. So for those who don't know, Shannon's going to be, Shannon and his wife are going to be basically embarking on a journey in a beautiful RV and just kind of setting a path across the country, right?
Yep.
And laying the anchor down at some point. That's not an innuendo. I mean, hopefully
Right.
it will be, but I'm talking about like you're going to be parking the RV somewhere.
Right.
Is to work this part of the country in the rotation.
Yeah.
And the fact that say this goes on for 5 years. Say you guys love what you're doing all that stuff. Work Columbus, Ohio in the annual travel plans so that
absolutely.
even if you need to park the RV on Rangel Place for a week, you know what I mean?
Is there enough curve space in the cul-de-sac?
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, there's enough cars. You're fine. But I'm just saying, like work that into your plans, because I feel like that is something that so many people do. They go away, they move away, they do all this stuff. They have this in their plans to do all this, and they end up back where they were, which is not a bad thing. But it's people don't visit their home as much. They move out, and 10 years pass, and it's like they're not around some of the people that were so important to them. It's like, no, you should work it like for not just you guys, but like work it back in where you come back and visit. Like you don't have to move back. I mean, you can, but I'm saying, work in the rotation so you get that home feeling.
Well, Shannon knows how much Columbus and my friends mean to me. Like I shared on the very first episode I was here, like,
you'll have to come back once a year to be a guest on the show.
I'm gonna be a remote guest.
He's gonna be a remote guest. We already talked about
but,
that.
I don't know, just my past. Growing up, family wasn't my strong suit, so I really leaned into all my friends, and that's how I kind of grew up. So my friends are my family, and
it's like Vin Diesel.
Yeah, I mean, quarter mile at a time.
Got family.
But I just love my friends to death, and I just could never imagine a life not coming back and kicking it and hanging out, laugh, cry, whatever it's going to be. And I talked to Shannon about this, and she's totally on board with me. And I even, my biggest fear of going out is, I'm giving up this career in a way. Like my goal is to be a traveling barber, but it's not going to be the same. And I won't be pulling my same weight with the financial side of things. She's actually picking that up on her side, and that's what she wants. And she knows this whole travel thing was her plan from the get-go last year, and blew my mind that she wanted to do it. I was always down for it, but
you cut her hair?
I can trim it. Yeah.
Make sure she gives you a fair wage.
Yes. Oh yeah.
You're like, babe, I kind of noticed you didn't put anything in the tip jar. You realize things are tight right now.
I need another bottle of bourbon, babe. But I don't know. Just my fears, probably through December and a little bit now, they're really starting to come to the surface. And the old me would bottle that.
Wait until the day before.
Oh, you have no idea, bro.
No, I do. I
they're coming to the surface now, and I talk to. Usually, I'd bottle it up and just kind of do the man thing and shut up. And
smart.
But
it won't come back up.
But I've been voicing stuff to her, and we had this conversation 2 or 3 months ago. I was like, "Look, we're going to be out. We're going to be doing this. You're going to be working your tail off, and you're gonna look over at me, and I'm gonna be asleep on the couch, slobbering all over myself.
Really? You don't have to slobber.
And I don't want you to ever. I didn't want her to ever
resent you.
resent me, and that was a huge contention for me because I don't know how not to work. So
You want to provide.
Absolutely, and
We all do.
Yeah.
And I
Kinda
was
built
like,
into
it
us.
was really bothering me, and I brought that up to her, and she was like, "Look, I completely understand we're about to embark on. I know I'm going to be carrying the load for a little while. As you build your part up," she's like, "Don't worry about it. You know, this is our plan. I understand the risks. I understand how it's going to go down. I just want you to, you know, whatever you got to do it. I'm never going to harp on you. I'm never going to give you shit." So that was a big relief. But I noticed here lately, I've been a little snappy, not at her, just in general.
Yeah.
And she's made a few comments over the last couple of weeks. It's like, why you feel a little more angry than I've ever seen you? And it kind of dawned on me this morning because she said it to me last night. I think we were watching something stupid. And I was just being like, what the fuck, you're you know, just. And it hit me this morning. Well, I was like, shit, I am a little angry. I am a little, it's just
cynical.
It's fear. It's nothing she's doing or anybody's doing.
You're projecting.
Yes, my fears are coming out because
that's normal.
I went through that. Yeah. So, you know, as I've talked about before and Steve alluded to earlier, you know, almost 10 years ago, I embarked on a journey to do what I wanted to do. And while I was doing that, I was able to make a good living for me and my wife.
Is this your traveling?
Yeah, this is when I was a sales rep. I was able to make a better living for us than what I had been able to prior to that. That opportunity did not last as long as I'd wanted it to, and it got to the point where, you know, my everyday type of job was working in the produce department at Kroger to be able to provide for my family. And kind of like what you're alluding to or what you said, I felt guilty because I felt like I was not pulling my weight in the household. I went from being the breadwinner to my wife being the breadwinner because of a setback. And I've talked to her about it in the 10 years since, or 9 years since that opportunity ended, that I never wanted to put that burden on her again. Because I felt it was unfair for her to be such a large percentage of the equation compared to what I was or compared to what I had been. However, and God bless my wife for it, she has still supported me in wanting to do something that I love and something I want to do, whether I'm at that same level I was doing that career or something else. Her biggest concern is not who's what percentage of the pie. Her biggest concern is, am I doing what makes me happy and what I enjoy doing? Because if I'm doing something I enjoy, that makes me a better person at home.
Yeah. 100%.
And she would rather have that.
Yeah, like I alluded to some fears. So my two biggest fears right now that are probably driving me the most is one is leaving my friends behind. I don't know why that's a contention for me. I love my friends. I love my core.
We love you too.
Thank you. I just love knowing that if I'm having a
damn it, Steve.
I know if I'm having a bad day, I can roll over to Steve or come over to Nate or go up to the cigar shop or call a buddy up. We can go have a drink and just, you know, talk me off the ledge or whatever's going on. And now I'm going to be thousands of miles away. It's like, okay. Am I going to walk out?
You got a Wi-Fi signal on that thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Then we're here.
I've got it hooked up.
FaceTime.
Yeah, you know, and I know, and in my heart of hearts, I know everybody's still going to be there, but I love human connection. I love face-to-face stuff. And then the other part is when I stepped into barber school, I always envisioned myself as a traveling barber. Like, that's why I call myself the roaming
How
barber.
long have you had that handle, the roaming barber?
3 years now.
And you've been a barber for
3 years now.
Okay.
So, but I knew that's in my heart of hearts. That's what I wanted to do. But I've built this amazing career here. I have a client base that's just insane right now. And as I've been giving all my clients the last week and a half, my final day, I'll be in the shop. You always doubt yourself in things like, am I really a good barber? Am I this? Am I that? And just the outpouring of love that these people have shown me has just been crazy. And it's just like, man, do I really want to walk away from what I'm building? I gave up everything to go to school, get into a shop. I took a whole year to rebuild. Second year was a good year. Now the third year was just off the charts, and it's still building. And it's like, I've got more people that I can even cut right now. I'm getting calls and texts daily. Can you get me in? Can you get me in? Because my books are full. I'm like, fuck, do I really want to just walk away from this? Or,
would you resent yourself if you didn't?
Oh, before you answer, what's the answer
What's that?
to what you're asking? Do you really want to walk away from it?
Do you want to walk away from it to pursue the dream you initially set out?
I do. I really do. And it's like that bittersweet moment of I know the plan is laid out for me in my life. I'm really stepping into it. And stepping into your plan or your dream is always going to be fear and anxiety and the what ifs and the blah, blah, blah. But like you said, if I didn't do it, I would. And a year from now, if I didn't do it, I would be at the end of the year like, I'm a fucking idiot.
Sure.
Because I would have based that off of fear. And I am very fearful. Not in a bad way, just it's the unknowns. It's
There
life.
it is.
It's the
you
unknown.
hit it right on the head. The fear of the unknown is so scary.
But I'm ready for it.
When do you guys leave?
So my last day in the barbershop is Valentine's Day.
It's romantic.
So I told them all to bring me roses and chocolates.
No, not roses.
I'll give them to my wife. Come on now. And then we have that big camping event that we help out up in Mohican that weekend of the.
Do you have a going away party that you have not invited us to?
There hasn't been really a going away party that we've planned. Actually,
Valentine's Day.
Rob is actually having a party at his house.
Big Rob?
Yeah.
That's cool. I wasn't invited to that either.
He just put this up. He just put this up the other day. So
Shots fired.
I didn't even know what was going on. So
it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
But yeah, it's just. And weirdly, I don't want that because they would make me more emotional.
When do you embark on the journey? When do you actually set sail?
I think the 19th is a Monday.
It's a Sunday.
So whatever that Monday is after that
20th
weekend.
would be
Yeah.
the following day.
February?
Yeah, February. So whatever that Monday is after that weekend.
What are you doing on the 15th?
No plans.
So you're on the podcast on the 15th.
Yeah, I was gonna
With
talk
Shannon.
to you about that. So
we're gonna have you back in 5 weeks or so.
How's Shannon and Shannon on the podcast? You think we can get her on here?
yeah, I'll make it happen. I'll make it happen.
You're on
Yeah.
the calendar.
That'll be a good one.
But yeah, it's just like you said, the unknowns, the fear, just it's all fear based, and I'm dealing with it and I'm pushing forward as much as it's making shit come to the surface of childhood crap and fears and whatever.
So for people that will listen to this now, I mean, we've only got a handful of listeners listening live, and I understand it's Wednesday, 10:15 Eastern time. I mean, it's January. It's dark. It's been dark
For 5 hours.
Yeah. It's dark on the West Coast. Shannon, I think this is a thing that, and I want to revisit this with hopefully your wife will come on
Yeah.
in February. But going off of what I said, what are your non-negotiables going into this journey? What is going to make this a success for you and your wife doing this? Is it her succeeding in her career to keep it afloat while you guys do this? Because that's the fact of the matter, right? I mean, financially, that's where we're at.
100. Yep.
You guys have saved up. You've done some smart moves in the last year, which is amazing to me that you were able to pull that off. And you have some great support system. I know you mentioned before you were living with another family that kind of like
Took us in. Yeah.
But between now and however long this lasts, but for the shorter period of time, possibly is for the year of 2023, flipping it back on you a little bit. What are your non-negotiables to make this a successful year? Doing something. I think again, Nate, I hope to hear from you in the upcoming weeks based on the hope of success with a potential career change and everything else and navigating through that. But with you, Shannon, like what are your non-negotiables for this to be a success for you and your wife?
I know there's going to be challenges on the road. There's going to be, unforeseen things happen.
Okay.
And our biggest thing that we've talked about is we have to be on the same page as we move forward. So we can't, well, I wanted this and you wanted that. Like our success through a whole marriage is we've always been on the same page with things. And when we move forward with something, it's a mutual decision. It's not because I want it or she wants it.
So communication is one non-negotiable right there.
Absolutely. I don't think it could happen without that.
Correct. Very little things can succeed without communication.
It's hard to put non-negotiables in because it's just going to be, I don't want to call it the wild, wild west of what we're getting ready to do. But there's going to be a lot of new factors thrown in, a lot of new situations. There's going to be a lot of stress involved. There are going to be beautiful moments and things we've never seen. But I think in those stressful situations, level heads and communication, because from everything I've researched and done, that's where, when it comes down to couples doing this, that's where shit falls apart, is the bickering, the arguments,
That's in an RV or otherwise.
Yeah. You don't have really personal space when you're doing this. Like I can't go to the back room or the basement or the cigar room or Tinder Box or whatever.
Steve's garage.
I'm looking at her. She's looking at me. Oh, you want me on the couch? I'll go outside to the awning. It's just like, so we have to really communicate through this whole thing. That's my non-negotiable. That's everything else is up in the air kind of, because it's all new.
It is. I would venture to guess if I could place myself in your situation, again, knowing what I know now and knowing what you're going through, you say that, but you're gonna have a lot of together time. It doesn't necessarily have to be 100%. I feel as though what I've learned in relationships, still learning in relationships, is that once you have an everyday that is established, is that you can allow yourself a little bit of me time. Kind of going back to some of the stuff that I had talked about with that of making sure that I'm a part of the equation. Mm. And I think that you and your wife, if I could give any advice, it would be, and maybe we can talk about it in February, is that it's okay to, just for the sanity and the health of the relationship, is, hey, I'm going to go FaceTime the guys at the shop. I'm going to go hey, it's Wednesday night. I'm going to go listen to the podcast for the couple hours. Not Absolutely. That you want to, but it's just like, hey, I'm going to go out, you park somewhere. Why don't you read, maybe have a glass of wine or whatever. I'm going to go outside, smoke a cigar and tune in. Yeah. She might be there too. I'm just saying, have those moments where you can still have a little bit of that separation, a little bit of the, you know, and for those who don't know, Shannon's wife is also named Shannon. So it's like you have your Shannon time, she has her Shannon time, so that it's not just 100%, just the two of you all the time, 24/7. The Shannon and Shannon show. It's 5 minutes, an hour, whatever it might be. You know what I mean? I encourage that because I know that when you are on top of the other person and all it is always just about the two of you being together, it offers potential conflict that doesn't necessarily need to be there. It's almost like made up because you want to be
just a fight.
You want to be with that person. That's your choice. That is a voluntary action. But there is also this like almost like forced conflict because it's like it's a bit of a smothering feeling.
Yeah.
And sometimes why is she upset? Well, it's because she just has you. It's not necessarily natural in this day and age to have that. And luckily you have the technology that you can do that. You don't necessarily, hey, I'm going to go like, you know, Sean Wilkinson, who's been like a good friend of yours, good friend of mine, us and the podcast is like, hey, I'm going to go, you know, FaceTime Sean for a little bit, step outside, have a conversation, just get, you know, check back in with Columbus and see how he's doing. It's not about being away from that other person. It's just about being you.
And she's, that's when I think one of the beautiful things about our relationship is like me coming to the podcast on Wednesdays. She's all for it. She's like,
oh, I know.
Go be with your boys. Go do your thing, you know. And she loves that.
It wasn't
Take
that long
him
ago.
off my hands.
No, it wasn't that long ago. You guys were both in there, and you know, like you were like talking to someone else, and it was months ago, right? And I said, "Yeah, I've been like, he hasn't been around." And I was like, "I hope he comes back around." She's like, "Yeah, he needs to." He keeps like doing, because you want to do date night, and it's not you're doing anything wrong, but it was like she's like, you know, because again, I think that's a big. I just it's an important thing.
Well, yeah, I think what I've been hearing from Shannon, like the importance of having the yoke between the two of you. So, you know, if you just saddle up, you know, not saddle. If you,
when you're on the road, you need to saddle up too. You know, what I mean?
If you just tie up two oxen to the same cart, if you just
saddling up there, big boy.
Yeah, if you just tie up two oxen to the same cart, but the oxen are not connected to each other, there's going to be a point where they're going to want to go their own way.
Yeah.
But what I hear from you is the two of you are yoked together. You both have the same desire, the same goals. You both want the same thing. So because of that, you're pulling together in the same direction. And when the two of you are pulling in the same direction, you'll accomplish far greater than if you're pulling your own direction.
Oh, absolutely. Like she just started
Oregon Trail right now.
Do what?
No dysentery.
So I brought up that example a long time ago about
I was kidding.
Belgian draft horses. So like a Belgian draft horse by itself will pull 8,000 pounds.
Yeah.
You put two of them together that have never worked together, they'll pull 24,000 pounds. But if you get those two horses that each pull 8,000 pounds on their own, but they've worked together for 6 months, they'll pull 32,000 pounds. They will pull double what they can to what you would think together. Why? Because they're working towards the same goal.
Well, we're working towards the same goal, but now that she started her new career and a new job, and she's so hyped for this, and I know my supporting role is going to be nurturing her in her new career, because I know she's going to kill this. She's such an amazing woman. I just see the future, what she's going to do with this company. And I know this first year is going to be a feeling out whatever we do, wherever we go. But I know I'm going to be in a supporting role, and she's been in a supporting role for me as my barber career took off.
Sure.
You know, now it's my turn to kind of do that. And I don't know. We're going to be good. I know in my heart of hearts we're going to be good. There's going to be problems. There's going to be stress. That's just life.
Whether you stay or go, yeah, that's it.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely right. And it kind of goes back to a lot of stuff we were talking about earlier. It's kind of like, you know, again, with your experience, you know, you said with age comes wisdom. I think with age comes experience. And sometimes relapses and not so wise, but you make the same mistakes. And I think that you are going into this with a mindset where you know that it's going to happen. It's life. There's going to be the ups and downs. There's going to be the trials and tribulations that you will have to navigate through. If you stayed here, same thing.
I had somebody tell me the other day that, we're about to embark on this, and there's going to be all these amazing moments in our life, but where it's really going to bring us together and really show us who we are as individuals and as a couple are the hard times. You know what I mean? If we can pull through in the hardest of times,
Yep,
without burying somebody out in the desert, we're going to be good.
as long as it's not one of the two of you. I mean, it might bring you closer together.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
you
you might be visiting a gravestone in Arizona.
You're gonna be on the run.
But yeah, I don't know. I look forward to this as much as it. I've talked about the fears. When we're sitting on our front porch and rocking chairs in our 80s, looking back, that's my eye on the prize. Is just
love it.
Yeah, that's where we're going with it, man. We'll talk more about it later, but no, I'm scared. I'm hopeful. I'm fearful, but I'm ready.
That's so healthy too, though. That's so healthy to be that mindset. And one thing that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you excited about this?
I'm tremendously excited. Like, it's over the top excitement.
Don't leave that out when you're talking about it.
Oh yeah.
So part two, as we round out part two, we normally do closing remarks. We've had, I think, a flurry of closing remarks in this conversation, but I think we should round it out. I mean, we could talk about this stuff all night, and I hope the people that have listened to this they have gotten something from it. I think this is it's been an interesting part two. And I will say that, again, the first part, very relaxed. This one's been very relaxed. This has been a nice, relaxing podcast. Shannon brings that energy to the garage, and I hope you bring that energy to the RV as well. I'm sure that your wife, Shannon, hopes that too. So I hope that you use the Bourbon and BS community page and everyone else that through social media.
Wednesdays will be my lifeline.
Well, that I'm just saying, you and I have
keep us up to date about what's going on, where you're at. Like,
Shannon and I have talked about, there are some of the, in a sense, roaming barbers on like TikTok and stuff like that. I'm not saying you got to be like one of those individuals, but there's a lot of potential on your side of things. And I think that you talked a lot about your side of things is supporting your wife. And I think that's so important. I'm interested to see how you guys do as friends, but I'm also really interested to see how you navigate through your career. And I think that, listening to you tonight, it was more about, and rightfully so, going into it, venturing out on this stuff, is that your role in a relationship and what you're doing, but you don't lose sight of what you hope to do with it. And again, if you guys end up back in the Columbus area, because it is home or whatever, after you've done this for X amount of time, that you bring that focus of your career as well, that you guys can find a home, whether it be Columbus, Ohio, or whether it be somewhere else in the U.S. or anywhere around the world, that you've been able to pursue your career and not lose sight of what you've done on your side.
Yeah.
Again, making yourself a part of the equation is important. And I think that your wife will likely, knowing her, value that part too. Instead of drooling on the couch sleeping until noon.
That might be the first 6 months, but you never know.
Like, honey, like Redbox isn't a thing anymore. Like, we have streaming services. Yeah, but like I got to return this DVD tomorrow. We don't even have a DVD player. Like, what are you doing? Like, there's a lot of obstacles you might run into.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Netflix no longer ships out DVDs.
They should, though. Yeah, closing remarks. Nate, you want to start? Shannon?
I'll start.
There we go.
Give Shannon a chance. One of the things I loved hearing about Shannon, and it's something that my wife has also said to me, and she may not realize how much of an impact it has on me. Shannon, you may not realize how much of an impact it has on you as well. But one of the things my wife has said to me is she doesn't want to stop me from being me. She doesn't want to stop me from doing what makes me happy. And one of the things that she had texted me during the podcast, she said, you eke out of you, and I'm not going to stuff out that electricity. A rising tide lifts all boats. If I kill the tide, then neither of us rise. In fact, we may sink. That's the wisdom my wife sometimes provides.
That's good enough to be on a Hallmark card.
It is. There. But one of the other things I heard during tonight that really had an impact, and it's something that I've had to deal with over the course of the last 9 years, but I've talked about recently on the podcast, is not letting the what ifs stop you.
Love that. Fear of the unknown, what ifs.
Yeah, the fear of the unknown. I mean, my biggest thing is because I have experienced failure and setback, I never want to experience that again. I never want to put, I talked about it even tonight, I never want to put my wife in the position where, she's the sole breadwinner and I'm relying on her, because I think that's unfair to her, it's not unfair to her because of what she is doing. It's unfair to her because I'm not living up to my potential to do what I can do. That's the reason why sometimes I've had that fear of failure, is because I know I can do certain things. I know I can be great at certain things. I don't want to fail at it because of not what it does to me. I can live with that, but there's someone else in my life that relies on me. I don't want that person to be a victim of my failures. And sometimes I think we put too much of that weight just on us. And we don't realize that some of us are fortunate enough to have another person there with us that is able and willing to carry some of that weight as well. We think we have to take it all on ourselves. And we don't realize that there are other people who can help us get to that point, whether it be in friendships, in career, in our personal life. Sometimes we feel like we need to do it all on our own, and we don't want help because it diminishes our success, or makes it feel like we didn't get there on our own. It's like, no, if you got to where you wanted to be because of the help of others, that's awesome, because that means you have people in your life that were willing to help you get to where you wanted to be.
Sure.
And one of the things that that popped in my head during this, obviously over the weeks of doing the podcast, people have heard me talk about, some of the failures that I've had in my life and what I want to do and what's held me back mentally from pursuing those. And some new listeners may not have listened to that in the past. What I want is, when I do get the opportunity to do something that I am passionate about and I really enjoy doing, I want the loyal listeners that have been with us over the months or over the years to celebrate with me in achieving that goal and doing something I really want to do. Because I think there's a lot of our listeners out there that when I finally hit that point, they will celebrate with me because they've heard me talk about it so many times. They're pushing me. They're wanting the best for me as well. And I think they'll celebrate.
good.
That's good.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, when you finally find either friends or a spouse or whatever it is that will fight in the trenches with you, I think that changes perspective on life. Because when you're doing it on your own, you kind of get stuck in your own thoughts and you're looking at this trench and you're like, how the hell do I get out of this? But when you have somebody come along, whether it's friends or a significant other, you have somebody in the trench fighting with you and helping each other get out of that trench. They can push you out and then you can pull them out. And I think that's tremendous as you move in through life, because life is a quagmire bullshit. But when I'm looking at this topic in front of me, tired of talking about the same stuff, I think we can still talk about the same stuff, but as we move ahead in our years, it comes with new perspective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it can't,
Yeah.
I think we can still talk about some of the same stuff, because we're all going to come with new perspective, new shit we've been through in that topic, or, you know what I mean? So I don't think that's a hard stop with that stuff. I think we can always grow on those topics, because our whatever we happen in our lives is going to change our perspectives and how we think about that, whatever that topic is. You know what I mean?
If you're open to listening, yeah.
Absolutely.
And growing and learning, absolutely.
Yeah. And I just, for me, and if I could put that out there for anybody, is embrace the fear. If you're looking at a new adventure, job, business, career, whatever it is, man, there's always going to be fear with that new beginning. Don't let the fear stop you from taking a chance. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You learn something. Take that lesson, move on. And I'll end with that.
I like that. I'm going to pour a last pour, so I don't have an empty glass at the end of this here to cheers with you guys. And again, Shannon, thanks for bringing this. Again, we're still sipping on from part one, the Penelope barrel strength bourbon here. 4 grain, 3 blends. We're all smoking the Monte Cristo Nicaragua series from Altadis USA. Is that right?
Yeah,
yes,
buddy.
we are.
What do you guys think about that before we round out here?
I noticed right away from the first light and not inhale, but draw, it was a very creamy, compared to the one we smoked before.
Yeah. It's a little bit, I think it's a little bit lighter than the Aliados.
Sure.
Yeah, smoother. But I think some of the nuances of the Aliados complemented the whiskey.
Yeah.
I mean, Monte Cristo Nicaragua series from AJ Fernandez. I mean, because it's medium and this whiskey that we're drinking is a barrel strength, I don't think they necessarily take away from one another. I just think what's different about the Aliados kind of made the whiskey a little bit better when doing the pairing.
Yeah.
But this is an absolutely fantastic cigar. In fact, I have a coworker that occasionally comes into the Tinder Box. He called me last weekend to ask me if we had this cigar in the shop.
We have plenty.
We do have quite a few. Greg Hampton calling you out, and he did buy one. But no, do you think this cigar would do better if it actually had AJ's name on it, like the H. Upman by AJ?
I mean, with the Monte Cristo name on there, I don't know.
Or do you think this kind of gets lost in the
strategy.
mix?
I like the strategy. I mean, Altadis did a push there with this one, the Romeo y Julieta Reserva Real Nicaragua that has had high ratings. I think this one was lost in the mix. Monte Cristo is such a staple brand that I think that it got lost in the mix with just the Monte Cristo staple blends. So
I agree.
That's where we're at. So closing remarks. So the topic tonight, Beyond BS, part 2 of 253 here is, are we tired of talking about the same stuff? you guys, I appreciate you guys getting personal with some of these things. And, Shannon, I love the question about, where are you guys at with this year and going forward? And I've already said a bit of this, and I will kind of, in summary, say what I already said in the closing remarks here is that, are we tired of talking about the same stuff? Yes and no. I think that there are people that are the negatives. I think people are tired of talking about the negatives. I don't think people are tired of. I don't think people will ever be tired of talking about themselves. It's natural. There are some people that are very good. Shannon, you're one of them. Nate, you're pretty good at it as well. One of our repeat listeners and also supporters, Spencer Lappin, who's been on the show countless times, is very, very talented at asking questions.
It's not countless. I keep track.
But there is the art of conversation that I think is lost on a lot of people these days. I think that's what we're getting back to. We talked a bit about, after everything we've been through the last few years, is that, people are just I think that people are tired of talking about the negative, that they're just numb to a point, numb to it. And they just are like, yeah, it's just the way things are. The transition there, I think, is really people asking more questions about the people they're talking to and with. I am of the opinion that most people coming out of this experience that this generation has been through, people are tired of being talked at. And I feel as though the true conversations are really getting more out of it. How can I help the other person? How can they maybe help me? But first and foremost, what do they have to say? And I think that's something that, are we tired of talking about the same stuff? Is, yeah, we are. But if that's what you want to talk about, I'm going to be a little bit more honest. Not blunt, but I'm going to be more honest.
Or still be the ear.
Yes. But again, going back to what I said earlier, is that is a question I think those people that want to keep talking about the same things they're upset about or they're struggling with, or they don't listen to the feedback. They don't do anything about it. They talk about it. They talk at you. My big takeaway, and again, you guys talking about your personal lives, I think is great. And that's why through conversation, which I love about part 2, is I'll do in my closing remarks is, again, going back to making yourself a part of the equation, no matter what situation you're in, whether you're in that conversation with that person, make your time valuable. They can complain, they can do all that stuff. They can complain about whatever it is, their life or people halfway across the world. But it's, again, the impact on their personal life needs to be in check of how are things with you? What's been going on? Well, did you hear about things that are going on over here? Or did you hear about, that Bills football player? He's like, yeah, I heard about that. Like, how has that impacted how you've been dealing with people in your life? If they don't have an answer for that, then that in lies the problem, I think. Well, it makes me feel like I need to reach out to some people in my family or people I haven't talked to in a while. Shannon's, halfway across the country and all that stuff. And that situation presents itself. And you have Shannon and his wife, Shannon, they're sitting there and they're seeing something like that on Monday Night Football. They see all that stuff. And it's like, does it make you just upset, or does it make you want to reach out to, people that are important to you and say that the big reminder, yes, I hope that person's okay. But it makes me want to actually reach out to people that are important to me that I haven't talked to in a while. And I realize that life has gotten in the way and I need to reach out at least to say, hey, Happy New Year. Hey, how are things? We have the technology to do that. So, I look at all this stuff and are we tired of talking about the same stuff? Yes, we are. We're still going to do it though. It's not avoidable. You cannot escape all the things that are bringing information to you. What I will say is, again, something that came up in conversation tonight is, does the way that you live your life every day, does it follow suit of your non-negotiables? Do you lose yourself in the moment because something has impacted you emotionally? Do you make yourself part of the equation so that you don't lose the focus on your inner circle, on your life, on you? I encourage everyone, and I encourage myself to do that through this year. And we go through all this stuff, is that you will have the same conversations you had in 2022 and 2021 and beyond that. But I encourage you to have a different conversation. And I hope that you feel as though that you have made an impact on that person. And I hope that you really bring yourself to the table of what you can bring as a listening ear, as a support system. You know, Shannon, you going through what you're going through this year, I hope that you reach out to people that aren't just the person that's sharing the RV. And I would venture, again, aggressively venture to say that if you keep it just in that RV, you're going to lose your goddamn mind.
Yes.
She's going to lose her goddamn mind. And you guys will look at each other and you're going to have bigger obstacles than you need to have. So luckily, taking this venture that you're doing, you have the technology to reach out to other people that are your support system that you may have, in your opinion, almost in your words, you may have left behind. However, you don't have to anymore, because you don't have to write a letter, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and hope to hear back and pen pal that shit for weeks on end, months on end. You can literally pick up your iPhone and you're like, oh, I got reception out here. I got Wi-Fi out here. You hear that familiar
ding. When was the last time you had a pen pal?
So I had a pen pal when I was in elementary school with through the school. It was a girl in Russia. My mom still has those letters. Had to translate it. I don't know Russian by any means. I think it was more just a exercise. I don't know what she said. I don't remember her name, but yeah, pen pal was a thing.
Yeah.
Russia was an odd choice.
Sophomore year of high school.
There you go. But I will say that, you know, are we tired of talking about the same stuff? Don't get tired of it. Just stay with it. I think that's the big thing. My closing remarks is, what was that?
Be there.
Be there. Yeah. Put effort into it. But again, put yourself first to a point. But when I say put yourself first, it's really about what's important to you. So it's not just you yourself before everyone else. It's who's important to you. Shannon, your wife, you guys are going to be in this together. So when I say, you know, put yourself first, it's not just you. It's you and your wife.
That primary circle.
Same thing with you, Nate. You know, it's doing things and establishing what your non-negotiables are so that you can succeed outside of that. Those things that you just will not give up on, that make you is so important that when you establish those things, now you can actually get to the point where you're going to move beyond that. You're not expending any energy on, do I go for a walk, whatever campsite you guys are on, you know what I mean? Do I sleep in? Do you know who you are and what you want out of your life? That's the real struggle. If you're there, stick with it and grow upon it. If you're not there, then that's your goal. To Shannon's question earlier, that's your goal of figuring out what that is so that this year can be better than your last, and that'll lead into 2024 being better than 2023. It's all about those stepping stones, and I think that's something that we all struggle with, and it's going to be, sadly, a lot of times it's 2 steps back for 1 step forward. And I love having this conversation. I appreciate you guys spending the time with me tonight and all you guys out there. So cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We guys see you next week. Should be a good episode next week as well. And yeah, cheers. Are we done saying Happy New Year? Is it over?
I think 11 days afterwards we're good.
Man, it's sad. People have a good mindset of the Happy New Year.